Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. Today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the second decan of Libra. I hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon as we're recording this. We're going to be taking a little bit of a deep dive into the full moon. We're going to talk about the sun in Aries. We're going to talk about the moon in Libra. We're going to talk about the hosts of both of those planets, the square to Jupiter today. And we're just going to spend some time together. So I hope that you're doing well out there. I'm going to welcome a few of my friends in here as well. We have Ani is stopping in, says, howdy this fine spring. How you doing, Ani? Nice to see you, friend. Yeah, it's nice out. The sun's out today near me. The vibes are good today. That's exciting because we're in need of some good vibes lately. So it's good to see you here, Ani. Rose is here, says, what a week. Thank God it's Friday on the iPad today. All right. Well, it's nice to see you here, Rose. I hope everything's going well your way and that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon. Corinne is here, says hello, everybody. Corinne says, nice to see you, Corinne. Hope everything's going well your way, my friend. Let's see. Marcia is here, says, hi, Spencer. It's Marcia from New Jersey. My eagle's eggs have hatched here in Mantua Creek. It's so exciting. Happy Friday to all. That's awesome, Marcia. Your eagle eggs. Is there just an eagle nest near you, or are you a wildlife rehabilitator? Or you'll have to let us know more about that story. That's a provocative statement, but an awesome one. That is very exciting. Anytime that we can help nature along the way or witness it in all of its glory, I think that there's something to be very, very appreciative about that. So, Marcia, thank you for that. Steven's here. What's up, Steven? Nice to see you. Says good afternoon to you, Spencer. Nice to see you. Happy Friday all, Steven says. Nice to see you here, my friend. All right. Yes, eagle time. Eagle time. So this is kind of a running joke in my household where it's basically you make like an eagle scream and you go, eagle time. And then there's like claw hands and I don't know. It's a weird game that we play with our cats. So I don't know. But I digress. All right, friends. Oh, Marcia says, yes, the nest is right next to my home. Nice. I love it. I love it. All right. Okay. All right, friends. So today we are talking about the full moon in the second 10-degree section of Libra. Before I dive into all of the things Libra full moon, let's do a few announcements. What do you say? We have some exciting things that are starting in the next week. I hope that you'll be able to join me for some of that. I have a website, spencermichaud.com, that you can find me at. Book readings, book classes. I've got a class coming up this week, so I hope that some of you will join me. Oh, I've had as many of you as possible will join me for class. But if you want to reach out for a reading, I do offer natal chart readings. I offer transit readings. I offer astrological tutoring, all sorts of wonderful offerings that you can find on the Book Now button at spencermichaud.com. That's where you can sign up for classes as well. I also have a store where you can find pre-recorded webinars with the Decan webinars that I talk about here today, Dignity and Devotion, where we talk about the 7 traditional planets and how to craft a magical practice around those, and just how to craft a magical practice in general, how to do election charts and things of that nature with my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews. Also have some webinars about the connection with tarot and astrology. So if you want to support the channel, that's a great way to do so over there. I also have a class that's starting this Monday, the 30th of March. We are going to be diving into the Silmarillion, which, if you are not familiar, is sort of this mythological basis for Tolkien's Middle Earth, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. A lot of the stories that you hear in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, a lot of that is drawing from this mythos, from this legendarium of the Silmarillion. And we're going to be going through that as a group, starting in March, going to the end of July. I would love for you to be able to join us. We're going to be doing that Monday, early in the afternoon on Monday, if you can make it. There is a little bit of a tuition, but if tuition's an issue, just reach out, send me an email. I would just love for you to be able to participate, pay what you can, even if it's very nominal or symbolic. I would just love to have more people on board. We've got a couple really cool Tolkien enthusiasts that are already signed up, and I would love to have more people hop on board, and we can talk about some of the astrology that we see coming through all the themes there. We can talk about sort of the myths that Tolkien was drawing upon to build this wonderful world, and we can kind of have some fun things to do and build some community along the way. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that you'll join me for that on Monday, the 30th of March. You can also find my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews, at Third Coast Mojo. She's got a number of wonderful offerings over there. Here, we're featuring a Mars and Capricorn iron teeth. This is one where we have little chips of beaver wood that we found in the forest that are incorporated into that. The beaver being a very, I would say, a martial animal that can reshape his environment, but do so with grace and with skill. This is something that Mars and Capricorn iron teeth can help you with. She also has a Venus and Libra Serene Queen. If you want to like kind of, center yourself during the full moon in Libra, Venus and Libra Serene Queen is great for calming our nerves down and getting centered. She also has some beautiful Jupiter and Cancer offerings, including Divine Dream, which you see here, which is for getting restful sleep and lucid dreaming. There's also a Venus in Libra Glamour Magic Soap as well. All sorts of good stuff. Check her out on Third Coast Mojo. She does fantastic work. You can also sign up for a newsletter where you can find out when I'm going live, and you can find out new offerings from Third Coast Mojo and new class offerings that we have. So go check out the newsletter. You can sign up in the description of this video. You get a discount on readings as well when you sign up for that. And then finally, if you want to support the channel today, you can purchase a super chat while I'm live on YouTube, or go to buymeacoffee.com to become a patron of the channel. Thank you so much for everyone who's been able to support the channel. This is what keeps me doing this work, helps keep the lights on, helps keep us getting all the books and all of the softwares and subscriptions and all of these things that we have to do in these modern times to keep doing work like this. So thank you so much for your support today. Okay, those are our announcements. Check back in our chat here. We've got some nice friends. Steven says, I like peanut butter jelly time. Okay, what's that we're doing? We're doing peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly. Is that what we're doing today? Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly and a baseball bat. I don't know if you know that meme, Steven, but there you go. All right. Can I see the chat? Can you, Ani? Oh, we've got some software updates that are coming. All right, hopefully you got it all squared away there. All right, friends, let's start diving into it. Let's talk about this full moon in Libra II. We're going to be seeing this at 12 degrees of Libra on April the 1st, which is next Wednesday, as I'm recording this on Friday, the 27th of March. I had to check real quick. What day is it? The days are all just kind of blending together. This is a full moon that is going to be squared Jupiter. Okay, so we have the sun in Aries, we have the moon in Libra, and we have Jupiter in Cancer. We are trying to find a balance between our own personal needs and desires and the needs of others. We might be working through contractual obligations and situations. We may also be trying to find a way to smooth that process out with the full moon square Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be in the overcoming square to the moon, which in traditional astrology is actually very positive. Squares, sometimes we hear kind of negative influences around, like squares and oppositions are some of the more challenging aspects in astrology. But in traditional astrology, when something is in the overcoming position, it basically means that it has, it's asserting its influence on that planet. So Jupiter is trying to assist in negotiations. It's trying to assist in our contractual agreements and make them go smoother than they might normally around this period of time. This full moon, oftentimes we can see this generally every year. We have a Libra full moon, but sometimes we can have difficult negotiations if the malefics are involved, which there are some malefic influences here, but the full moon squaring Jupiter helps to make that process a little bit more graceful. Saturn and Neptune are also co-present with the sun in Aries. So we have a lot of responsibilities that we're trying to work through. We have maybe some new beginnings that we are trying to figure out how to navigate, which also can lead to some endings that may be a little bit scary, right? We may have to leave behind a situation where we were bonded with someone else or where we were in a partnership, and we might be forced to go our own way alone. And this is really not, it is something that Saturn and Aries is bringing to a lot of us, like the necessity, Saturn's binding nature, says, hey, you've got some responsibilities here to make a new start, to be more independent, etc. Now, Neptune can confuse some of the details around that, so we have to be careful that we get clarity with all of that, especially with Mercury still in Pisces and now direct, maybe not even getting the benefit of that retrograde fallen Mercury theory that we are working through, that maybe suggested that a retrograde fallen planet might be acting exalted, which we draw from Vedic astrology. So communication is going to be really important around this full moon. We also have a trine with that Mercury with Jupiter. So this is kind of an emotional way of communicating, the ability to see the details, but also see the bigger picture, and to do so without necessarily, I don't know, being able to do it in an emotional way as well, to be able to trust our intuition. I think this is a full moon that really enhances intuition, where we might not know all of the rational details about a situation, but we have heart behind it, where we know we trust our heart, we trust our gut, we trust our intuition to guide us through getting to the other side of this full moon. Now, there is one aspect that's forming that could be a little bit challenging, and that is the Venus square with Pluto. So we've got Venus and Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So that's another part of this that we need to be aware of that's coming together, because it's going to be kicking off a number of squares with Pluto from Taurus. So some financial challenges potentially around this, because Venus is actually the planet that's hosting the moon around this period of time. So to me, the squares with Pluto, with Venus and Taurus to Pluto and Aquarius, that really speaks to some financial worry, but due to macrocosmic issues, big picture issues, societal, systemic issues. And I could, we're probably all feeling that to a certain degree right now, with the uncertainty that's going on in the collective and the global instability, with wars that are being perpetuated, with economic challenges that come as a result from some of those decisions. Through also, I think, through when we have those kind of experiences and we, I guess for lack of a better term, alienate some of our allies, it may be more difficult to do commerce as well. So this is something where we're kind of seeing some big picture experiences that could lead to maybe some financial insecurity. So we'll talk about that a little bit today too. So those are sort of our big picture thoughts with that. I'm just going to check back in, see if we've got more people stopping in with the chat. Okay. Elisa is here. What's up, Elisa? Alfred, nice to see you. Says, I like your headphones. These are my nice, what are these? Sennheiser headphones. They're for studio recording and things of that nature, but they help me hear if all the levels are good, right? Says, where did you get the mic? I want one. You're cool. Thank you, Elisa. This microphone just is a SM7B. This is a Shure SM7B, which is an excellent mic for recording vocals, but also for podcasting. There's a version that you can get that's a podcast one, that where you don't need an extra little box for it. The one I have, you need a little preamp for it, but there's other ones where you don't need that. I bought one for my partner Tanya, so check it out. It's a great mic. It's not the cheapest mic in the world, but I think it's worth it to sound good. Elisa says, I subscribe. Thank you, Elisa. Appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. Yeah, so if you're a fan of the show, if you're enjoying what you're hearing today, please like the video. That's the easiest thing you can do. Leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification bell. Okay, let's see. We got any other comments coming in? Ani says, just seeing if my YouTube chat is working. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on. No worries, friend. No worries. All right. I love to see new friends here. Yeah, we're, let's see. Okay. We've got we're working out some technical issues in the chat here. Nelly is here. What's up, Nelly? Says, hi, first time catching you live. Well, I appreciate you being here, friend. Thank you for joining us. I love when we get all these new faces joining. So we're going to be talking full moon in Libra today. We're going to be answering any of your astrological questions, especially if they're related to the full moon. And happy to answer technique questions and things of that nature as well. Okay, so today we're talking about this full moon. So we've gone over kind of the big picture thoughts around it. let's start zooming in to some of the mid-range themes with this, right? So what we'll do is after we've gone through this big picture thought about it, we're going to start breaking down some of the themes of the individual pieces of the full moon. And then what I'm going to do in the third act, if you will, is take you through how the moon is going to unfold and how the aspects are going to unfold until we get to the new moon in Aries. So we're going to go through the kind of half the lunar cycle afterwards to kind of figure out how is this going to unfold? What is, you know, we don't want to just look at snapshots in time because that really gives us just half of the picture. Really, when we're studying astrology, we're studying cycles. We're studying many chapters of a novel that we are creating or co-creating together with the divine. So being able to see how this is unfolding is equally as important as seeing what the actual themes of the one moment when the moon is full together. Yeah, appreciate you, Elisa. Okay, so first thing we're going to break down is the sun. Now, a lot of people are like, well, why would you start with the sun? It's a full moon, right? Well, every time we have a full moon, we are seeing an opposition between the sun and the moon. And the sun is shining light. It is creating a sense of purpose. It's creating a big spotlight on something that we may consciously desire to achieve. So the moon in traditional astrology is a collector of that light. So it's showing us sort of the format of the intention that the sun is setting. So when we understand the intention of the sun, we can more easily bring balance to what the moon is actually asking us to do with that intention. So let's start with the sun in Aries 2. So we're going to bring this to the stage. I'm going to show you one of my Decan flashcards here that you get when you purchase the Decans of Aries webinar that I have on my website. So Aries 2, sun in Aries 2, a very powerful place for the sun. It is the sun in its exaltation, the sun in its own face and its own decan. Okay, we have Aries being the house and the temple of Mars. So we are trying to achieve a severing and a separating from the collective to individuate in Aries as a whole. We talked briefly before about Aries 1 being saying, this is the Mars ruled face. We go Mars, Sun, Venus for face rulers, decan rulers, which are secondary planetary rulers. So with Mars, we are severing from what we want to leave behind. We say, we reject and say, this is what we are not. We are not this, okay? In Aries 2, we are stating our own personal beliefs and values and quote unquote royal decrees. The Book of Tea, or Book Tea, which is a Golden Dawn book, which is an occult organization from the early 20th century, late 19th century, that helped to establish some of these syncretizations with the tarot and astrology. Book T calls it the Lord of Established Strength. The Book of Thoth, which is a secondary book from someone who split off from that Golden Dawn, his name is Aleister Crowley. Book of Thoth calls it the Lord of Virtue. And I think that's important because what we're doing is we're trying to understand what our own virtues are. What is our guiding light? We already rejected in Aries 1 what we're not. And here we're trying to establish, this is who I am. This is the world that I want to create. These are the values that are permeating that world. This is how I want to lead, right? Aries is a cardinal fire sign. It's about passionate leadership. This decan also talks about benevolent leadership. Austin Coppock calls it the crown. We do have the maximum degree of exaltation for the sun at about 18 to 19 degrees of Aries. So very powerful place for vitality, for energy, for leadership. I would also add for the potential for generosity. The sun is a place where, or is I guess a celestial body that gives life, right? It creates life. It can also take life away. It can be both life giver and reaper on some level. But I think that I've been trying to kind of plant the seed that the sun is just giving consistently. It is helping to give life and give life and give life. And it can show us where our generosity in our own charts can be limitless, or we have a limitless energy for that generosity. So like, for example, if you're I don't know, if you are a Libra II sun, for example. We'll talk about Libra II today, but you might have a limitless capability for seeing things from both sides. You might be able to weigh someone else's perspective versus your own. If you have the sun in Aries too, like we're talking about here today, you may have a special talent for really showing people who you are and telling people and stating what your values are and what your beliefs are and leading from those values and from that integrity. So this is a really interesting place, a really strong position for the sun. Okay. What is it? Let me see. Okay. So we're going to talk about the host of this particular planet right now, which is Mars. And the first thing that we'll do when we talk about that is we're going to bring to the stage here, going to bring the Pisces webinar slides up. So give me a second here. Okay. Got to remove one first. I have too many slides here, so I have to put this back. So here's the Pisces decan. And what we're looking at here is Pisces 3. Okay. Mars is at 23 degrees of Pisces in this particular full moon chart. Okay. 23 degrees Pisces is third decan, 10 of cups. And what we're doing when we're doing traditional astrology is we're trying to connect the guest-host relationship between planets. So one way to look at astrology is to think of these signs as temples or lands that have a certain amount of intentions, right? They're trying to achieve certain things. They have resources. The planets are the gods or the deities that are responsible for using those resources and carrying out their intended purpose. Mars is on its own face in its own decan at 23 degrees Pisces in Pisces 3. It's in a Jupiter-ruled sign. So one of the things that Jupiter is trying to achieve is order, peace, being able to bring things together to achieve a specific goal, to achieve a dream. When we have Mars in this decan, we're taking action towards our dreams. We are making sacrifices for our dreams. So there may need to be some sacrifices that we make for our dreams. This is called A Cup of Blood in Austin Coppock's beautiful book, 36 Faces. So this is something where we need to maintain our hope. We need to think about what we might have to sacrifice to achieve our dream. And how do we do that to be able to live in personal integrity, to be able to state what our own intentions are for our journey and say, what are our values? What are our virtues? Identify our vices as well. What do we have to eliminate to get where we need to go? How do we grow? So really asking ourselves questions about what sacrifices are necessary for us to actually live the life that we want to live and create the world that we want to see. Recently, we've had a lot of things going on in the collective where they're pretty painful. They're bringing up a lot of fear. They're bringing up a lot of anger. They're bringing up a lot of disillusionment and disappointment. But when we see those things, when we identify, as the sun was moving through Aries 1, the things that we don't want as a part of our world. And for me personally, I don't want war. I don't want rampant, corrupt capitalism. I don't necessarily want AI data centers everywhere. I don't want all of the, all of our creativity and our information and our intellectual capabilities to be filtered through a billionaire's technological platform that we have to pay somebody for into infinity. Those are things that I spent the last decan of Aries rejecting, right? Now that we're moving into the second decan of Aries, we have to say, what do we want to create? If we're rejecting all of that, what's on the other side of that? And Mars says, what are the sacrifices that you're going to have to make? How do you enact that vision? Personally, I want to plant some gardens. I want to plant some food. I want to plant some vegetables. I'm turning my backyard into a food forest. We planted a number of fruit trees last year, elderberry trees, serviceberry trees, pawpaw trees. native trees like redbuds and red oyster dogwoods. We planted all that. That's part of our vision and dream. Also, like if we're not going to use AI to make all these generative images and think for us, well, we're going to get books out and we're going to read books together like the Silmarillion. We're going to use our creativity. We're going to share our gifts with one another rather than letting the computer do it for us. We're going to meet with each other in person and kind of build community in that way. Those are the types of dreams that are important to me, and I think more people in this community as well. We're going to work towards peace. We're going to work towards equality. We're going to work towards a system of economics that's more fair for one another through maybe potentially through gift economies, through learning how to share, learning how to practice degrowth and demonetization, but not suffering anymore by letting go of some of those things, right? By being able to still have a rich, wealthy life, but not necessarily based on the bullshit and lies that we've been told for much of our entire lives in Western civilization. Those are the types of things that we say, this is what I believe in. This is what I want to create. And Mars is helping us to be with our passion around that. It's helping us maybe get other people on board and say, what do you have to leave behind to do that? Okay. Now that we've talked about the Aries part of this, right? What is the other side of this? Okay. What is the other side of this? Some of this may be through necessity, right? Some of it may be through necessity. So to be able to do what we are doing, I say necessity because Saturn is saying you might not have a choice. You're going to have to figure out how to shape your own world because the old world is kind of crumbling underneath our feet. The old narratives, the old stories are crumbling beneath our feet. We go back to Mars for a minute. What we need in that decan, the third decan of Pisces, is hope. We need to maintain hope even in the face of some of the most horrific things that we're experiencing as a global community. Elpis is the daimon or spirit in that decan that helps us to continue to move forward and continue to visualize what we want to create, rather, even in the face of seeing things that we don't agree with or that we don't want as part of our world. So now we move forward to the moon, okay? Because this is the other side of this. I'm going to check it in the chat before we move forward here. Ani says, okay, let's see. We've got, your puppy broke my 3D printed dragon's wing. Oh, no. I'm sorry, Elisa. Sounds like you got a busy day over there, right? Corbin is here. What's up, Corbin? Says, hi, Spencer. I finally made it for YouTube Live. Nice to see you here, Corbin. Hope you're having a great Friday afternoon. We're talking full moon in Libra. Ani says, Spencer, you should see my new patio garden. 13 culinary herbs on a tight space, making it work Aries style. Ooh, I love it. Planted on the new moon. That sounds awesome, Ani. I'm super excited for that. We're trying to work through some kind of infrastructure issues with our garden. Well, we have some of those designs as well, but yeah, being able, you can grow a lot of food in a small space, right? That is really, there's lots of resources out there to learn how to do so, and it shows grit. It shows not taking no for an answer. I love it. Yeah, the Aries style. We are in the middle of trying to figure out how to remove some asphalt from our backyard. We've got a backyard that's more driveway than plantable space, and the driveway is huge. It doesn't need to be that big. So we're trying to figure out how to remove that so we can build some raised beds and then plant more stuff. So I got to get rid of some of that first, and then I'm getting really excited about gardening this year. I think it's a really great way to ground ourselves in these kind of up and down tumultuous air age times, like getting your hands dirty, getting some in real life experiences, I think is really great. Okay, so let's talk about this moon in Libra II, conjoining the fixed star Algorand. An important detail, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the flashcard associated with Libra II. And when we see this Libra II decan, okay, Ani says, I'm still cool. Thank you, Elisa. I appreciate it. I'm not sure. Did I do anything to be uncool for a minute? I hope not. Ani says you have to get rid of a lot to make room. You can see progression in the decans. Yeah. when you really start tracking the stories around the decans, you could see it manifesting in your own life. Like the whole like first decan of Aries, rejecting that which we are not to say, here's what we are, right? You can see that in projects that you're doing. You have to remove stuff, right? You have to get rid of the old stuff so you can put new stuff in. So Moon in Libra II, conjunct Algorab. Now we have this Moon in Libra II, three of swords, where we see three swords piercing a heart with rain clouds in the background. Austin Cabot calls it two links of a chain, which talks about some of the Saturn qualities to that. We'll get to that in a second. Book T and Book of Thoth call it the Lord of Sorrow, which is a little bit scary. But what I would say with this decan, there are obligations that we have to work through. Two links of a chain means that we are bound to certain vows that we make. We are bound to our word. So our word is really important. When we say we're going to do something, following through with that is really important. This decan can speak towards breaking agreements, breaking contractual agreements, but also it can speak towards committing to them. So a lot of times if people, let's say you were doing a tarot reading for like a wedding or something like that, and you got this card. Some people might on the surface be like, oh no, that's a bad sign for my marriage or something like that. Maybe not necessarily. This decan can also speak to the vows that we carry through over a long period of time. So it's a Saturn-ruled face or decan in a Venus-ruled sign. We're trying to bring things into harmony. The first decan of Libra, we're identifying imbalance. We're identifying inequalities. Okay, we feel some anger around that as well. In the second decan, what we're doing is we're trying to tip the scales a little bit. We're trying to figure out what someone else's perspective might be. We're having the negotiation. There is a spirit in this decan that is a little bit different from the one that is listed in 36 Heirs of the Zodiac, which is a fragmentary text from Hellenistic times, you know, way back in the day, a couple thousand years ago, right? Where we see it listed as Kairos, the opportune moment. Austin Coppock suggests a different one, a different daimon that I think makes a lot more sense. He talks about Horkos in his wonderful book. And Horkos was the god of agreements, the god of oaths, of your word, of saying, hey, I've committed to this. Back in ancient civilizations, not everybody knew how to read and write. So written contracts weren't necessarily the only way that people made agreements. Sometimes people made an oath, a blood oath, a spit oath. They spit on their hands, shook hands, or they said, I give you my word. And that was really important. That was really important back in the day. It's important now, right? Our word is very important. Sometimes if we break our word, it fractures the trust that we have with people. So when we make a promise to people, being able to follow through on that can help us to live in integrity. Now, Algorab is a fixed star that is associated with Corvus the Crow. Corvus is a constellation shaped in a crow shape, that is related to two other constellations, Crater, the sacred cup of Apollo, and the serpent, the sea serpent. What was the sea serpent's name? The Hydra. The Hydra. Okay, so Corvus is riding on the back of this Hydra sea serpent, and there's a cup right next to them. And Corvus, the crow, was given a task to fill the sacred cup of Apollo. And basically, Corvus the crow got distracted. Like crows get distracted with shiny objects. He got distracted with the earthly delights. I believe in this story it was like either something shiny or like figs or something like that, something delicious. And he failed to fill the sacred cup. And this is important because the next part of the story talks about Corvus not taking responsibility for his distraction. He basically put the blame on Hydra and said, well, this was Hydra's fault. This wasn't my fault. Hydra did something that distracted me from this and blah-bitty-jobbity, right? So he didn't take responsibility for his failure to fill that cup. So a couple things we can glean from this, right? First of all, this full moon may try to distract us. We may be distracted by shiny earthly delights. We may have a sacred task that we have to carry out, but we may have a lot of things, a lot of noise that might be trying to distract us from that. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing we can think of with this Algorab fixed star contact, if we do fall short of our agreements, of our vows, etc., it is very important that we take responsibility for doing so. You can make things much worse if you lie about a failure rather than just own up to it, admit it, and move on. Okay? So this is another thing where we're needing to take personal responsibility if we've fallen short of our contractual agreements with others. Now, two ways to kind of mitigate that. First of all, become undistractible. Okay? Easier said than done. There's so much noise going on in the world. But how can you focus as much as possible? How can you make a list, turn down the noise, delete the apps, whatever it is that you need to do? Put them on in a lockbox. Put your phone in a lockbox while you finish the project you're working on, whatever it is. If you become indistractable, right? Secondly, if there's just things that come up, it's okay to admit that you failed at something. A lot of times we feel like we have to scapegoat or put blame on someone else when we know deep in our hearts that we kind of messed up. And you can make things so much worse by doing so. And Corvus was doing that for himself, making things so much worse for himself instead of just owning up to his failure. So, really interesting fixed star part of that. Elisa says, how do you know all this? Elisa, since you're new here, Lisa, one of the things that, well, first of all, I may be a little bit older than I look, I hope, or there's some softening here. I'm in my mid-40s, and I've been studying astrology for probably about 25 years now. And I have a large library that I've been collecting over many, many years. And I love to read. And I've been doing this channel for the last almost 8 years now, 7 or 8 years. And every single week I read and I make notes and I do it by hand. And I go through and I through repetition, really. I have some wonderful teachers. I went through a training program to do traditional astrology. I also consider some of these authors that I refer to and reference today as teachers as well. I think it's just through repetition. It's through reading a lot, through practice, but also through connecting the theory that we read in the books, that we learn in the classroom, with my lived experience. Elisa, one of the things I love to do is I love to journal. I do a journal every single morning. And what I do is I don't just journal about the events of my day. I do that. But I also write in the margins of the page all of the astrological aspects that I'm experiencing personally in that day and the important ones that are happening for the collective, so that I have a reference of every single experience I was going through connected to the astrology of my personal astrology and the astrology of the moment for probably the last 20 years or so. So it's a huge thing to be able to draw upon. I have a decent memory for these types of things. And yeah, Ani says I'm old school. Yeah, and this is why I think in a lot of ways I'm so passionate about doing things in a certain way, doing things in kind of that old school pen and paper, reading books, not letting the computers think for us, because it keeps our mind sharp. It keeps us able to draw upon all of this wisdom without having the crutch of the computer program next to us. It's really important that we maintain that freedom, because when we outsource our intelligence to these programs, what we're doing is we're letting that part of our brain atrophy. I posted a reel the other day about how many of us can barely remember more than 2 phone numbers anymore. Well, when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, I was born in 1980, you had to remember probably 50 phone numbers, right? By memorization, by heart. And sometimes you wrote some things down and things like that, but we're losing touch with some of those things. We're losing touch with the ability to reason, to have a memory, to be able to do things like mathematical equations by hand. And that's not to say that I do every single thing a calculator can do by hand, but I think keeping ourselves fresh in that regard, keeping our minds working, if you don't lose it, it's like any muscle, it atrophies, right? And I would also say the freedom part of it is by continuing to do these things through books, through writing things by hand, through repetition, through not outsourcing our intelligence, you also maintain your freedom to not necessarily have to be beholden to power structures that basically want to bleed you dry of your resources. They say, let's outsource all of your intelligence and then you're going to pay me to access it like a utility. I don't want that. So I continue to do things in maybe a slower but more old school way so that I can bring up all this stuff in real time. This comes from working with lots of clients too. Like the people that I work with, client-wise, I learn from their experiences. I learn from their stories, and I try to connect it with the symbols. That's all we're doing is we're making connections. We're meaning-making machines. We're connection-making machines. And I hope we don't lose that as a species. So delete your ChatGPT subscriptions. Don't give any more money to the tech bro billionaire class that wants to basically turn you into a vegetable and then charge you for it. And yeah, and Lisa's doing violin, playing a musical instrument. It's an excellent way to keep those neuroplastic, that neuroplasticity is what I'm trying to say. I was a guitar player for many years before I did astrology. I played guitar and sang and was a musician. And all of those things are actually very similar to the way that we do astrology because we're taking a symbolic language like music and we're making all of these connections and intuitive connections. Ani says, you should see my Astro Magic class struggle with arithmetic. So easy to let the programs and now AI. I like shortcuts and math stuffs, but common. Yes. I'm sure that there's a second part of that statement, but common equations, we need to learn how to do those. We need to figure out how to do that, right? Corbin says, awesome. My namesake is Corbin, Little Crow and Raven. Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. We got some popcorn emojis. I love it. I love it. Elisa, another thing, I love teaching. And instead of just doing a forecast that might take 20 minutes, really, I do these longer live streams because really what I'd love to be able to do is teach you how to understand the astrology rather than just tell you what's going to happen, right? And by telling these stories over and over again, it's like we're sitting around the campfire and sharing stories with one another. And I do it live because then I can hear your stories. I can hear your experiences. And it's like we're having this campfire-like conversation and learning together. That's the type of thing that I think is really valuable in these times. And we're using some technology to do it. Doesn't mean that we have to be completely anti-technology. It's just that we need to keep some of that critical thinking skills. Yeah, we need to still know how to do it the hard way. Lonnie says, exactly. Elisa says, my dad knows how to do 11 instruments. That's amazing. He's like Prince. So go check out Prince. He played all those instruments. It's incredible. I think I know how to play maybe 4 or 5. I can play a lot of string instruments. And I can do a little bit of keyboard, and I can bang on the hand drums a little bit. But songwriting was kind of the thing that I was really into. I was really into. I have a creative writing degree as well, and I really liked writing song lyrics and things of that nature. I've kind of shifted my focus more to astrology in the last few years, but that artist is still within me, and those skills really helped me become a better astrologer. Okay, Ani says, "Don't let the PC spell for you either." Exactly, exactly. Okay, so Moon on Libra II, conjoining the Algorab, we are trying to balance the solar intention of stating our specific set of values with understanding someone else's perspective, okay? That's really the essence of this full moon. Our own personal needs and values versus someone else's. How do we fulfill our potential of starting to create the world that we want to see without getting distracted, okay, by some of the I don't know, the horrific things going on around us. Doesn't mean we put our head in the sand. Doesn't mean we ignore the suffering going on in the world. It means that we don't let that suffering that's going on in the world completely immobilize us. Doesn't mean that we let it take away all of our hope. We talked about hope earlier in this broadcast. How do we maintain our hope even when there's things that are literally designed to distract us? This war with Iran and America is a distraction. It is a distraction from the corruption and the kleptocracy that is happening in America right now. The stealing of your tax money and the transfer of wealth from the working class to the billionaire class, to the Epstein class, to whatever you want to call it. When they're facing potential accountability, that's when people start going to war. That's when people start doing more of these distractive type of things. So there may be things like that in the collective, maybe not just in our personal lives. There may be more distractions that come up. And we need to start staying focused on what our goals and the worlds that we want to create. I want to tell you, friends, the last live stream that I did, I got pretty upset. I got upset about artificial intelligence. I got upset about the state of the world. I got upset about war. I lost my centeredness and composure. I would say that a good portion of that anger was justified. But I would say that after thinking and reflecting and seeing how things came to be in the last week, we actually had some victories this past week, friends, and we should acknowledge those victories. One victory was the lawsuit against Meta and Facebook and Instagram, where parents won a lawsuit that said that these particular apps are designed to make children addicted and to keep them on those platforms. It's a $375 million payout. That's a really important ruling because what it's doing is it's showing us that these tech platforms, these apps, are specifically designed to change the way that we think and change our behaviors, not for the better. And the more that we can see people being able to push back on that brainwashing, basically, the better. That's a victory. That's exciting. Another victory, based on the conversation that we had last week, the generative AI model, Sora, is being shut down. This is something from OpenAI, from Sam Altman. They had $1 billion deal with Disney to be able to utilize their characters for generative AI. Disney pulled out of that deal, and Sam Altman basically shut down Sora. That is a victory. That is a victory for truth and for sanity and for being able to see things as they are rather than this confusion that we see with generative AI that could be very much abused. Okay. That's a victory. Those are small victories, right? For what we're experiencing. Yeah. Ani says, feels like David and Goliath in tech warfare. It does, but those victories are important. And those victories should give us hope that if we keep pushing back on this, if we keep using our brains, using our community. Here's one thing I will say about this. Some of you might ask, why are you so against AI? Why are you so against artificial intelligence? Blah, 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 blah. I think that the vision of what I would like to see with this, first of all, any new technology needs guardrails. We need to think about the ramifications of full-scale adoption before we adopt it, rather than trying to fix a problem after we've already adopted it. Humanity is not super patient like that. And it's not just humanity. It's really people who are seeking profit and they don't care about the effect that it has on humanity. That's what we're talking about here. How can we find reasonable guardrails for this technology before it becomes completely ingrained in everything that we do? Number one. Number two, things like generative AI have scraped the internet for art, for music. We've got Elisa is talking about all these instruments that their dad can play, right? And Elisa knows how to play violin and piano. Well, what the internet is doing right now, what these tech bro billionaires are doing right now, is scraping all of that music, all of that data, all of that art, feeding it into their AI models, and then charging you to be able to use it and access it moving forward. It started off as something free, and now it's going to be presented as a utility for you to use. They're basically going to say, you are going to have to pay this one individual money as a utility for the ability to think, to be the ability to create. To me, that is a terrible, terrible thing. All right. We shouldn't have to pay people to make art. We shouldn't have to pay people to make music. We shouldn't have to pay people to be able to think, to read books, to have access to information. That really, I don't believe that. Yes, there are certain circumstances where you're paying a fee to like a teacher, or you're paying a fee to an author, or you're paying for the supplies to create that art. That's okay, right? But we don't want to consolidate all that wealth and power into a handful of individuals. When we stop using the AI generative models, what we do is instead of saying, well, I'm going to do this because it's faster, it's more convenient, I don't have to pay someone to do that. What you're doing is you're taking all of that resource and money out of your community. You're taking it out of the people that could do those things. You're taking it out of the people that could be an editor. You're taking it out of the people that could be an artist, that could be an astrologer. And you're giving it all to one individual. In ChatGPT's case, Sam Altman. One person gets all of that money that would have been equally distributed to the community and their variety of skills. That to me is class warfare. Okay? So this is why we have to think critically about these things, because I don't know if any of you have seen the end of the movie WALL-E. That's what we're heading to right now. Like where we're on a barge because we've completely destroyed our environment with garbage and pollution and things like that, where we're just plugged in like we are in a matrix or something like that, and we're just being distracted by food and by imagery and things like that, and some big corporation is in control of all of it. We lose freedom that way. At the end of the day, what is most important to me is freedom. And I think that this is something where I push back so hard on all of these things that we're experiencing right now. More people need to speak out about these types of things, because we're heading towards a very toxic future that is in the control of a very small handful of people. And that is something that I will always resist against. So let's see. Ani says, the race to build the best AGI is preventing guardrails because it's slowing down who will lead progress. Right? Yep. Says Elisa says, I'm getting free classes to do violin. I love it. I love it. Keep doing music. It's great for your brain. Great for it. Lisa says, I love that movie. WALL-E, right? Is that what we're talking about? Ani says, we need to use technology to solve problems as tools, not replace humanity. It should be making mundane tasks efficient, not making people obsolete with a worse outcome. I'm down with the technology rant, Ani says. Yeah. And I say this, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, because we're hurtling towards a really difficult future right now. This is me stating the world that I would like to create by making people aware of the world that we're living in right now, right? Ani brings up a great point about replacing humanity. It is a stated goal of many of these very wealthy people to be able to utilize AI agents to do their work, where they don't have to deal with the messy parts of a human being. Someone who may have to use the bathroom, someone who may have to be paid health insurance or a wage, or have to eat or need breaks. And the goal is to replace humanity with a lot of this, or to create two very distinct classes. This kind of technocratic, feudal state, billionaire class, and then everyone else. And this is the reason why people like that are building bunkers in New Zealand, okay? Because they're destructive. And they know that by continuing to do this, they're going to destroy a lot of the things that makes being human and living in this world nice, fun, joyful, okay? Yeah. Elisa says, the AI is killing me. I hate AI. Here's a simple thing that you can do, Elisa. You can stop using it. You can turn it off. You can go through all your settings and all your search engines, turn it off. Stop using it. Speak out about it. Go to your local community centers if they're trying to build a data center near you and talk about it. Talk about why it's really problematic. Okay. Yeah, Ani says bunkers outside of Sacramento and Montana. And Elisa, keep playing your instrument. Keep reading your books. Keep meeting with people in real life. Keep talking to people, real people, right? And then if we keep talking to each other like this, right, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to understand what people's lived experiences are, rather than what the narrative that corporate power wants to craft for you, right? They want to craft a narrative for you. That's where we maintain our freedom. Okay. Ani says AI on search bar after phrase. Yes, you can turn all of that off. I use a search engine, DuckDuckGo. You can completely turn off all the AI features with it. Okay. So as many of those things as you can shut off, the better. And for the love of God, don't give ChatGPT money. You know what I mean? Like, if you need help planning your garden, if you need help planning your schedule, there are ways to learn how to do so. There are people you can talk to that can help teach you how to do that. Okay. Technology, weekly technology rant, mostly done. But we have to keep talking about these things. These are real issues. And I think it really fits with Libra II, because AI is going to become better and better and better at distracting us. And if we don't want to just live in a perpetual distraction, if we want to be able to focus on the things that are important to us, the things that are important to being human, we need to talk about these things, right? Yeah, Ani says, don't ask Grok for advice either. Yep, exactly, especially on that platform. The people that design these get to put their own values within it, right? And the values of Grok are the values of Elon Musk. Think about that for a second and see if you agree with some of the things that he does, or the values of all the slop on Twitter. If you're asking that AI that question, it's going to be biased. It's not going to be objective. So you have to think about it in that regard as well. Elisa says, my mom has ChatGPT. Well, you can, hopefully today, Elisa, from having this conversation with this community here, you can find some talking points where you can start a conversation with your mom and start talking to her about what why she feels that these are pros and why they might be cons. Not only are we letting the AI think for us, but it has a huge environmental impact. It takes up a lot of electricity. It takes up a lot of water. It takes up a lot of land that could be used to plant crops and things of that nature. And it also consolidates power in the hands of very few people. So those are talking points that you can bring to that conversation with your family. I love it when we have some kind of, I don't know, back and forth on this channel, and then people are like, oh, I use those talking points to go talk to my family. When we talk to the people that we care about, we have built trust with them over our lifetimes. And it might be easier for them to hear it from someone like you that they love, rather than to hear it from a stranger, right? So these are all ways we can have conversations with people. Ronnie says, I knew I couldn't be friends with this guy because he has a deep convos with Grok. Nope, I'm out. Yeah, I mean, you probably don't want to have conversations with Grok. This is the thing too. The other thing I've been reading about recently, Libra themed, a lot of people are asking AI for relationship advice. Another reason to not utilize these in that fashion, the artificial intelligence is designed to keep you using it. Any of these, this is what that Meta Facebook ruling was all about this week, is these platforms are designed to keep you on it. And they do it by manipulating you, all right? So they can sell you more ads, so they can charge you more in the fees and things of that nature, right? So if we understand that we're being manipulated by it, we can opt out on that level, right? Also, the AI, if it's designed to keep you using it, if you have a really bad idea, like if you actually really are being a terrible partner, and you ask the AI, am I being a terrible partner? You know, blah, 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 blah. That's my thing today, blah, blah, blah. This is my yada, yada, yada of the day, I guess. If you ask it something and you are actually in the wrong, the AI is not going to be like a tough love friend or parent or family member. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. And they may be perpetuating the worst parts of your personality and character, rather than someone that could say to you, hey, you might not want to act like that. You might actually be in the wrong in this one. There's going to be less of that pushback. And that's super important. That's how we hold each other accountable. This Libra II decan is about holding each other accountable, the vows that we make for one another. It could, the AI agents could be saying, you know what? No, that's a great idea. You should totally take a crowbar to your ex-boyfriend's car window. Yeah, he's a total asshole. You should just completely destroy all of his property. Yeah, these are the types of things that it could potentially say. When a friend would be like, maybe you should cool down. Maybe you don't want to go to jail for vandalism. Maybe you should take some time for yourself. Maybe you should go, figure this out, right? So it's helping by not using those and talking to real people. You can start getting the types of feedback that create a social fabric, rather than are supporting keeping you on the platform to the profit of rich individuals. Does that make sense? Okay. Rose says, just because I'm not using AI does not mean I am not learning how it works, and it seems as if some of the tech bros will be defeating themselves in the long run. Knowledge is power. You should absolutely learn how it works. Yeah. You should absolutely learn how it manipulates your mind. You should absolutely learn how it may be co-opting your creative abilities and then charging you for it as a utility. You should absolutely be learning all of those things. We're learning it right now. We're discussing it right now. So I definitely educate yourself about this. You'd be amazed at people that aren't learning about this right now too. Like my poor father, I had a conversation. I keep talking with him about this stuff. And I was trying to tell him about these landmark legal things that happened in this last week. And I was like, all right, Dad, you know about AI, right? He's like, do you know what ChatGPT is? And he's like, no, what's that? And I was like, okay, we've got some work to do. He's so far away from some of these things that he doesn't even know what ChatGPT is. And you should know what it is, because it's going to have important ramifications if it continues to be perpetuated unchecked without any guardrails. Ani says, OpenAI tried to convince me to preach my gospel out of a van. Delete Felicia. Absolutely. Elisa said, I low-key want to meet up with a professional with violins. I watch videos, but I still don't get it. I know how to play, but I'm just starting violin, and it is like the best instrument in my opinion. Absolutely. Elisa, I was a private guitar instructor for the 20 years before I switched over to astrology. And the feedback that you can get from an actual human being is really important. You can fix something that it would take you a number of hours to watch someone on a video. The video isn't giving you feedback. I know that there may be a time where the AI gives you feedback on your instrument things, but then all you're doing if you're using an AI agent to teach you how to play violin is you're taking money out of the hands of someone who studied for 20 years to learn how to play violin, and you're just giving it into the hands of a billionaire like Sam Altman. That's it. If you think of it from that perspective, it's much better to keep that money in your community so everybody can have a job, right? So that we don't replace human labor. That's why we're talking about this today. Ani says, it will give you terrible advice. Remember, kids, AI doesn't eat, breathe, or sleep, so it doesn't exist in our physical reality. It doesn't know shit about reality. That's true. It has hallucinations that have nothing to do with reality. Rose says, please differentiate between the external cloud versions of AI versus the local ones you use totally on your computer that do not upload any of your information. We're not going to get into that differentiation today. I know that there are definitely some things on local servers, and you're making this argument because that is the argument that Nichepso is making with their version of their software over there, which, I watched the video, Rose. I watched them talk about the astrological software, and if that's what people want to use, that's fine. And they made some decent arguments about the viability of that program and how they're taking steps to protect people's data versus the environmental impact. I have some other issues with that program, one of which is the subscription-based model. The program that I use, I bought once and I can use it forever instead of having to pay perpetually for it. over and over and over again. I would prefer, if I'm saying what I would prefer that if somebody makes a new model of something, that we maybe buy the new version rather than having to just continue to pay for it over and over again. I'm kind of getting burnt out on subscription models. So that's my main kind of like thing with it right now. If I'm honest, there's some pretty cool features on that program. And there's some stuff that as a traditional astrologer, I would love to be able to use. I'm not ready to commit to it. And I still have questions about local AI models versus external cloud versions. The version what kind of came to me through that video was they're like, well, this is there was still a lot of trust me bro type of stuff in that. I still got the feeling of trust me bro, your privacy is protected. I'm not sure about that yet. I'm not sure that I'm ready to trust that yet. I also think that doing astrology, a lot of times we need to learn how to critically think about what Mars hosting the sun in Aries means. I would also say that if you allow a program to make delineations for you, you are atrophying the muscle that helps to make those delineations. Now, I'm not saying that that's what that program does, but I think that there's definitely going to be parts of that that will atrophy some of people's critical thinking skills. Will it be a great research tool? Potentially. I'm not here trying to say for or against that particular software, but I still have a lot of questions, and that's why we continue to educate ourselves around it. Elisa says, you're goated. UW, thank you, friend. Thanks for being here today, Elisa. I like your energy. I like that you're joining us here today. Devin is here. Selena's Gateway says, good morning, Spencer. Happy Leo moon with sun having dignity for the first time since Sag season. It feels good, Devin. I'm having a pretty good day today, actually. I've got Jupiter conjoining my sun today. I got had a nice conversation with my daughter and my family. I've got some plans to meet up with family this weekend. I'm feeling a lot better than I did last week. So I hopefully we're being balanced in the way that and centered today with passion though and enthusiasm. And yeah, it's amazing how a little bit of good sleep and some hope for the future can make our energy go more forward, right? Let's see. Rose says, no, I was not solely saying that because of the Chepso. Yeah, let's move away from that issue completely today. Like, it is interesting as far as like, because it's a cool, potentially cool astrological software, but the potential for misunderstandings in the chat, trying to break down something as nuanced as that, I think there's a potential for like people misunderstanding each other. So maybe we come back to it and we can keep talking about it, and I'll keep learning about it and you keep learning about it, and we'll figure out how maybe we meet in the middle, right? Elisa says, my brother's addicted to games. He's on his computer 24/7. He's so addicted to games that he's always teasing me when he doesn't have games. Games shouldn't exist. Yeah, I think that there are lots of things that if we overdo it, if we become addicted to it, it harms us in our realities. If we are outsourcing all of our attention to the game, or we're addicted to the phone or the television or the program or whatever it is, it makes it a lot more difficult to deal with the physical reality. And I think as much as the tech industry wants us to enter the metaverse or second reality or second life or whatever it is, I just don't believe in that. I believe in physical reality, and I believe in protecting it. I believe in protecting the trees. I believe in protecting our water sources. I believe in protecting all of those things. There's so much beauty and variety that I don't know if a computer will be able to replicate that. And it's important to me that those things still exist and that those things are still available for future generations in the forms that we see today. Ani says, make sure your home video surveillance isn't uploaded. I agree with subscription scam. I download no clouds. Right. Ani says, don't trust, verify 100%. Rose says, the external AI versus local AI is like only taking the train versus getting your own car. You misinterpreted the point I was trying to make. Yeah, Rose, we don't have to get into an argument today. Like, maybe we have a difference of opinion. We're still learning about all of these things. It sounds like we probably agree on more things than we don't. So let's leave it at that. Devin says, in general, the public is not protected from the tech industry and simple things like copyright protection for all citizens over our image, voice, and data. Exactly. That's the future of this, really, Devin, is people completely consuming your likeness. Like, for example, because I do so much, such long live streams, there could come a time where AI could scrape the Spencer Michaud Astrology YouTube channel, completely mimic my physical features, my voice, my patter, the way that I speak, and then create an AI agent that could do these broadcasts where you probably wouldn't be able to know the difference. And that's really scary. It's really scary. This is what the Actors Guild has been fighting for, the SAG. The Screen Actors Guild is protection over our image, voice, and data, etc. And why we're so vehemently against this, like folks out there, Rose, etc., is that all of this stuff is integrated so very deeply into things we already use. You have to be really proactive to protect your data and your privacy. And I think that maybe, Rose, you forgive us if we're skeptical of the promises of computer developers when there's been so many people that have made promises like that in the past, and then when push comes to shove, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. So I'm not just going to take someone's word for it, and I'm not just going to like see one advertising video that is trying to bring a subscription-based model into astrological software and just accept it without questioning. That's just not who I am. So yeah, we have to really ask those questions. Ani says, intellectual property rights, F you, pay me. Yep, exactly. Ani says, or we all go open source and share, but I don't find that likely. This is a really important point. If I was to look at a program like Nichepso, my hope is that it would be something open source. And for those of you who aren't familiar with some of these issues, open source is when anybody can view the source code and make adjustments to it and add to it. To me, that is the best possible future, is where we have a set of computer codes that everybody can communally keep adding to, where there's not just this one person that controls it. I'm sure that those guys have done a lot of great work, and trust me, they're great astrologers. The people who are advertising that software are excellent astrologers. Patrick Watson, Nick Dagenbest, Alan Boss. Can't remember the programmer's name, forgive me, but they're excellent astrologers. But I'm uncomfortable with people owning all of that knowledge, even if it's a handful of people like that. I'm uncomfortable with that. I would prefer that these programs be open source, where we can actually work together to put our heads together to make that a future reality. I know that's potentially idealistic. I know people have to make a living. I understand those arguments. I even reserve the right to change my mind about subscription models, okay? Because if I'm being honest, like the way that society is trending right now has been making my business suffer. Like, people are going to ChatGPT and asking it astrological questions. I'm not getting the same amount of clients and students that I did before that model came in. It's a real problem. It's coming for every single industry. It's coming for knowledge workers, as well as for people in the tech industry, creatives, etc. It's coming for all of that. So this is why we have to ask these questions right now. But the open source model is something that I think we should learn more about. I have a big project that I would like to do moving forward, where I would love to be able to use more open source software and get rid of some of these proprietary models. Okay, like for example, my email list is through something called MailChimp, and MailChimp got bought out by a much larger company, okay, Intuit, right? So when MailChimp first started, this is a great argument for what we're talking about today. When MailChimp first started, it was a small company run by a handful of individuals that had some really great features. Eventually, it grew, and they sold to a much bigger corporate entity that completely started inshittifying it. I have a little bit of fear that a program like Nichepso, or any program out there that has a subscription-based model that maybe started out as an idealistic small handful of good people trying to do something positive for their communities, what's to say that they're not going to sell out to the large corporate entity and completely change all of the terms and circumstances. And then you're locked into it. You've become dependent on the program, etc. That is a real possibility because it's happened over and over and over again. That's why I have real skepticism around it. Even this program I'm using here today, this is called StreamYard. It's a wonderful program. It's really upgraded the graphics and helped me do things, but they keep raising prices. They keep adding features that I don't want and charging more and more for it just to use the basic features. They have AI features where you can clip out things and put them on your reels, and I don't use that because I don't believe in it, because of the downside is greater to me. But I don't have a choice in how much they're going to charge me for those types of things. Do you see what I'm saying? We should be able to elect the features that we want. If we have something that's working, we shouldn't have to pay an ever-increasing subscription price for things that we may not even want to add to the things. So you do have to figure out what's going on with that. Elisa says, bro, I have a Tesla model, and the AI that we can ask to locate places if we ask her weird questions. She's always acting so weird, but she's always answering us in weird questions that are inappropriate. I'm not going to let a fucking robot drive my car for me. Like think of the possibilities for corruption that could come through that, or for abuse. That's scary. Ani says, this is why we lost Steve Jobs. He was advocating for open source. Yeah, open source is really important. Never forget about Edward Snowden, just saying. It's scary when we dig into the underbelly. I use Linux now. Yes, I would love to be able to do that. About to move to Proton Mail. I'm going to be shifting my email list eventually. It takes time to do that. It takes time to learn new infrastructure and to learn new programs and learn all of those new things. Not quite as convenient, but principles aren't cheap. Exactly. All right, let's move forward, friends. We're getting kind of caught in the weeds here. I think that, again, I think a lot of us agree more than we disagree on a lot of this here today. I think that these discussions are very important. I think that it is important to talk about things that affect us in the astrological field that are directly related to some of these bigger picture macrocosmic issues. And I also think that we leave space for not being so binary about it, to use the computer language, to not be 100% right, 100% wrong. We leave space to change our mind with more information. This is one thing I love about Robert Hand. In his book, Horoscope Symbols, 1982, I think, he has in his introduction, I reserve the right to change my mind with more information. I love that. And I reserve the right to change my mind with more information and more experience using and looking into some of these things. At the moment, I have real concerns, and I don't think I'm conflating issues with things that are we're talking about today. I think that there are very real concerns that I have with multiple things that we're talking about. So Devin says, I love all this conversation about contracts with the Three of Swords sitting up there. Exactly. The astrology is speaking through us. I'm having problems with subscription models. That's a contract, right? That is a contract that we're working through. And if you do some more research on enshittification is basically when you get indoctrinated into using a certain program, software, whatever it is, and then they start taking features away from you and charging you more for it. You become dependent on the technology, and then you are so dependent on it that you have to keep using it, and then they got you. This is why I'm so opposed to the AI, generative AI ChatGPT, because I don't want my brain to become dependent on it to the fact where they can just have complete control over what I do and think and charge me whatever the hell they want for it. That's scary. And we should all be pushing against that. And he says, it's hard because if you opt out, you can't participate in society. So I'm torn, to be honest. You get locked out. Getting locked out might be detrimental. I hear that. I hear that we are so integrated with some of these things that it might be difficult to feel a sense of belonging. I don't think that we're going to get completely locked out of society if we reject some of these things. I think that we're going to have to create our own version of what society means to us. I think that we're going to have to relocalize. We're going to have to get to know our neighbors. We're going to have to learn how to do some things in real life, even though there are some challenges to doing that with our health and with things like, infectious diseases that are still spreading and hurting people. There's challenges with that. Like I'm still practicing COVID safety measures, friends. If you weren't aware of that, that is another thing that is still something that's been on my mind. I think that we've completely, swept that under the rug because of a need to return to profit generation. It's all part of the same system. These things are all connected, okay? So how do we start creating the society that we want to live in if we feel out of touch with the society that we are a part of? Elisa says, I kind of don't like Roblox because I was scrolling through Roblox and I found a Roblox account for sale. So I literally had to change my account because there's so many bad people out there. Yeah. And shitification like iOS. Yeah, sure. And I'm not immune to these things, friends. There are certain things that I'm beholden to and that I use that are really hard to disengage from. And I think that we have to kind of do damage control on some level. We might not be able to extricate ourselves from all of these things. We're not going to, many of us are not going to be able to just go out in the woods and build a log cabin and go completely off the grid. I tried that once. I tried to buy a farm and realized that the pollution that was flowing into our water supply was part of an interconnected web of humanity and reality. And it's hard to go off and try to find a purified society. That doesn't really exist. So this is why we talk with and have communications with the centralized forces and the people on the fringe. That's why we bring these up on these platforms so we can have these conversations so that maybe we can find, I don't know if it's middle ground, but we can find our humanity in a system that we would love to be able to change rather than just completely leaving each other behind. I don't think that that's what this is about. I think this is really about how do we start to envision something that is fair and just for all of humanity, not just for people who want to opt out of the techno-feudalism, okay? Devin says, we are seemingly groomed to accept that type of contract, change adding prices through Netflix model. Remember when you didn't have to pay extra for no ads? Exactly. That is shitification in a nutshell. You paid $8 a month or whatever it was, and you had access to all that material. And now that's not enough because they need to see number go up, right? So now you'll pay 3 times that much for ad-based, access. It sucks. It really sucks. I'm going to the point now, Devin, where I'm busting out the old DVD player and I'm about to go get fucking DVDs from the library because I'm so sick of that shit. I'm not going to pay $300 to $400 a month or whatever it is for, 10 different streaming services. Screw that. I can't afford it, to be honest. And a lot of people can't afford it. A lot of people can't afford this. We're getting priced out of just regular, services and regular like entertainment fields and things of that. Like there are other ways to do this. Yet sometimes you do have to take a quote unquote step backwards to be able to find your humanity again. Ani says, I'm working with others who are building digital platforms to bypass techno-feudalism. I love it. I love it. And again, just to piggyback off of what we were talking about last week, because we got a little spicy about it. And that's not my intention. It's not my intention to drag down people who are trying to innovate in a shared community, the astrology community. And potentially the people that are working on that new software that we've been discussing, maybe they have the best of intentions and maybe they are thinking about these things. But I do think that we need to continue to have skepticism when we're offloading, when we can't just say, trust me, I'm not that guy. I'm not a bad technology person. Because we've heard that before. I've heard it over and over and over again. I've heard, oh, I'm different. And then they pull the rug out from under you and then start, doing all the same things that all the techno-feudalists do. So forgive me if I'm skeptical, even with something that could be a very cool and useful potential thing. Ani says, and yes, it requires in-person meets, get to know your neighbors, 100%. Elisa says, don't you ever go to the fridge, but there's nothing. Don't you ever go to the fridge, but there's nothing good. So 10 minutes later, you come back to see if there's anything better. Yeah, I mean, stop going back to the fridge. Go out and forage some new stuff, right? Rose says, I cut the cord 7 years ago. I don't pay for no streaming services. Well, that's great. And that is an act of resistance to some of these things. But it might require you to bust out the old DVD player or whatever and go to your local library. That's what, if we keep using libraries, we will continue to I think, justify their funding, right? Libraries are amazing. I love libraries. So kind of detaching from making a CEO rich and encouraging people to invest in those types of things, I think it's really important. And it is an act of resistance. Ani says, hopefully people can't be together physically. If people can't be together physically, we don't have to succumb to the surveillance state. Well, that's also coming. So we'll be talking about that here too. A couple names you should know with that are Peter Thiel, Palantir, etc. Those are two. If you need to go do your research about those things, start understanding who those people are and what their goals are. And not because they're good people, because they have really nefarious designs. Yep, that's the goal. Use technology for altruism. Listen, I have no problem with technology itself. What I do have a problem with is the Promethean use of technology that seeks to become godlike. Like I really would highly recommend a book by Liz Green, The Art of Stealing Fire. And this conversation is going to become more and more poignant as Uranus moves, not permanently, but into Gemini for the next 7 years. Because the Promethean instinct to steal fire, to become more godlike, to become more efficient, to think faster, to do more. This Sacred Economics book I've been reading, I'm doing my research to try to formulate my thesis statement so we can start building a community to study this together. Thank you for your patience for that. But this book talks a lot about the designs of technology, of the promises of it bringing us more and more leisure because we can do things faster. We can, if we just were able to do these mundane tasks, these boring tasks so much faster, that'll give us the time to do the real things that we love, like art and music and things like that. Well, that's really not how it's worked over the course of history. What happens is the more you have these technology advances, like the Industrial Revolution, the more you mechanize the system, the greedier the people that own those mechanizations get. And they say, well, you can do these things in half the time that it took you to do them before. Well, you can make twice as much stuff. That's the reality. It's not bringing us more leisure. It's not bringing us a higher quality of life. It's bringing more profit for the people at the very top echelon that control those technologies. And the same thing is true for the artificial intelligence. It's not going to bring us more leisure. It's going to change the bar. It's going to raise the bar for what we consider to be enough. And it's going to keep you addicted to it. These promises that people are making about universal basic income and stuff like that, I don't know if I buy it. Do you really, really think that these folks that are so screwed up in the head that they are going to step on people to get where they want to go, that they're going to take electricity and water away from people, that they're thinking about replacing humanity for profit, where no number is ever enough for them monetarily, where they have more money they can spend in 10,000 lifetimes? You really think that they're going to be like, yeah, let's share some of that altruistically? Come on. It's not going to happen. All right. And this is something that we need to really be aware of. The universal basic income might happen if we vote for it and we put it into some kind of political movement, potentially, But it's not going to come from the tech billionaires throwing out tiny scraps to be like, here you go, have a little scrap, have a scrapple while I live in my bunker in New Zealand. Come on. We're better than that. Elisa says I like comic books. I also like comic books. They're great. Okay. Let's keep going. We really got down an important conversation. This is an important conversation. I have no regrets for this diversion. All right. We got algorithmed a little bit into our intention, but these are important conversations that I want to continue to have. These are things that we need to become more vocal about moving forward. These are extraordinarily important conversations to have for the future of our humanity. And if we can't have those conversations when we're talking about literally astrological divine influences about what it means to be human, where else are we going to have these conversations, right? A lot of the times we are given a roadmap to these philosophical and these ethical concerns through the astrology. They are teaching us how to come back to balance, how to come back to wholeness and equilibrium. They also teach us when we might be feeling influences towards horrific things, feeling influences towards trying to be godlike, like Liz Green describes in The Art of Stealing Fire with Uranus. The main point that she makes about a lot of that, and I will also say this, as I was hearing people advertise some of these astrological programs, literally, they started mentioning Frankenstein. And Frankenstein is one of the stories mentioned by Liz Green of a cautionary tale about technology and the attempt to become godlike that gets out of control, that can no longer be controlled. And that's the thing that I'm most worried about, is when we put so much of our freedom into something that we may not be able to control moving forward. That's when it starts to become destructive. So these conversations with the Three of Swords on the screen and the Libra II, like what are our contractual agreements to each other as human beings? They're really important conversations to have moving forward. And I hope that we can do so gratefully. We're not always going to agree with each other in the chat. But what I love about this community is we're able to present things with grace. We're able to like take a time out if we need to and say, I need to learn more about that before we make declarative statements. That's what I'm trying to do here, is say, I may have a really strong opinion about this in the moment. Maybe I will do more research and learn more about it. Maybe it will change my opinion. Maybe it won't. Like those are the things that we do when we're trying to find common ground and equilibrium through Libra II, as we say, well, now I've heard your perspective. Now I'm going to go figure out if that works for me. And if it doesn't, then we still have more work to do. If it does change our mind and our perspective, then we can start moving more towards the other party. These are going to be skills that we're going to need to moving forward, especially with this full moon. Ani says, income movement based on San Francisco, look for them for UBI. Elsa says, I kind of forgot what we were talking about. we got algorithmed, Elisa. Devin says, UBI without life essential markets, food, water, food, and housing being capped will simply raise the profit margin. I have to learn more about that. That sounds like something I need to know more about. Without life essential markets, water, food, housing being capped. So I think what Devin is suggesting, that if we are getting a little bit of an allowance from our tech daddies, eventually what they're going to do is just keep charging more and more for regular services like housing, food, etc., so that they can own all of that real estate, food, means of production, and then just continue to perpetuate their own profit margin. Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah, so we'll see. Okay, let's go back to Venus. So here we've got Venus hosting the moon. So we have to understand, when we're looking at a full moon or any astrological communication, we have to understand what the host planet is also doing. So for those of you who are new to astrology or new to traditional astrology, the moon in Libra is visiting. So think of Selene or the moon as a goddess. She is visiting the temple or the land of Libra. And the steward, the host, the ruler, okay? I like steward and host better because it's a little bit less colonialized language. But the steward or host of that land or temple is Venus, Aphrodite, okay? So Aphrodite is in a certain house herself. And in this case, she's in her other home that she is a steward of, Taurus. Now that's positive because we have a concept called like ingirding, okay? Even though there is not an open, visible line of communication between Taurus and Libra, okay? Generally, think of like you are able to communicate with your host if you're staying at someone's house to be able to know what's in the refrigerator. Let's use Elisa's refrigerator model there. If you were staying at a friend's house, but you couldn't get a hold of them, you wouldn't be able to ask them questions about where's the fridge? Where do I find the keys? What's the code to the door code or something like that? And it would be much more difficult to move around in that space. When you have an open line of sight, an aspect to the host, then there's this open line of communication. Now, in this case, I'll show you on the chart here. Okay, let's look at the chart real quick before we break it down. In this case, here's the full moon chart. In this case, we have the moon in the temple of Venus, and it's in aversion to its host, Venus. But there is a secret line of communication between them called like ingirding. Because Venus is in her own other temple, there's like this secret backdoor communication between them, all right? Let's talk about Venus. Let's go back to the Decan flashcards here, okay? And we've got Venus in the first 10-degree section of Taurus. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is squaring Pluto. We'll talk about that in a second, but Devin's got some clarification for us. Says, yes, basically, if the market knows you're receiving $100, unless we cap the price of bananas, they can raise the price to possibly absorb that new income. Yeah, 100%. So it all has to be implemented in a way that will actually benefit people rather than the techno-feudalists. Agreed. Thus, UBI becomes an added revenue stream instead of a cushion for the public. Well, and you better believe that the greedy dudes that want to control not only your mind, creativity, and freedom, they're going to be trying to figure out how they benefit the most. So you don't want to trust those people. They're not trustworthy. Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they're not trustworthy individuals. They are very mentally ill individuals that don't really care about people. They care about their own bottom line. And until they start changing the way that they act and show us that they are doing something a different way, you shouldn't be involved in their kind of services. And I know it's easier said than done. Like I still have an Instagram, I still have a Facebook, but we can do some damage control with this. Devin says you can't see that in the research being done because market can't react to it like that on the small research scale. Sure. Yeah, we have to think of these things as interconnected webs of relationships. And one action has an effect on these other things. This is something I was looking at with a book. I listened to a podcast this past week called referring to the limits of growth by an MIT scholar that really started talking about interconnected systems and how one action is directly related to another. Like if we have a food system that is, if we, let me think about how to contextualize this and then we'll move forward. She gave the example of like trying to eliminate predators in an ecosystem that was trying to help deer, for example. If you were saying, well, we got to eliminate all the mountain lions in California that are killing the deer. Well, if you eliminate all the mountain lions in California and the deer population explodes, then the deer eat too much of the food and the whole system completely collapses. So by eliminating something that seems like it would solve a problem by doing it in a piecemeal way, you're actually creating a problem for the entire system. And the same is true when we look at like food systems, when we look at not enough money in the system and creating more money into the system, when we think about, you know, I don't know, there's other examples of this, but we have to start thinking holistically, not just on individual levels. So just UBI is not the only solution, right? We have to think about, like what Devin says, is not only do you need the UBI, but you need the cap on the market for housing and food and et cetera to actually have it be of benefit. Oh yeah, Ani says, don't forget about Bezos. Yeah, he's one of the worst. So yeah, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Altman, Peter Thiel, who else? Come on, give me all these names. I don't know. Who else are we? Oh, maybe Tim Cook on some level now too, which sucks. He's the head of Apple. All these people, anybody that you saw in that room at Trump's inauguration, they're all on that tip. Ani says he wants to own all the hard copies of info. Those are valuable when energy is exploited and the grid is vulnerable. Alex Karp, Ani says, yes. Gates, yep, another one. Elon Musk in particular also. Probably George Soros, all these dudes. They're all, anyone who has consolidated that much wealth probably doesn't have humanity's best interests in mind. Rose says, bring back the wolves that only kill to eat. They heal the whole ecosystem. Think Yellowstone. Yeah, exactly. We need balanced ecosystems, and we need balanced social systems, right? I like that metaphor. All right, so let's talk about Venus and Taurus 1, the host of the Libra moon. This is a Venus that is well resourced. Now, it doesn't look like it might be in Taurus 1 because we have a tarot card, the Five of Pentacles, associated with it. This is a Mercury-ruled decan in a Venus-ruled vase. Now, Taurus is very receptive. It's very generative. It is very fertile. It is fecund, right? There's fecundity in Taurus. Now, Taurus 1, though, often in the Decanic story, we sometimes see the lack of what we are trying to achieve in the first decan. We work to achieve balance in the second decan, and sometimes we have an excess in the third. So you can see we are lacking material resources in the first. We are finding a balanced and equal distribution with the scales here in the second decan, Six of Pentacles. Then maybe we have too much of a good thing in Taurus 3, and we're trying to figure out how to fix something or cut back, okay? Decan 1, though, it is not necessarily scarcity itself, but the fear of scarcity that leads to the title, the Lord of Material Trouble, the Lord of Worry, in both Book T and the Book of Thoth. Austin Coppock calls this decan the plow in 36 faces, where we are trying to learn how to make plans to avoid scarcity, right? We're learning how to plant the fields. We're learning how to remove obstacles like rocks in the fields. We're learning how to make that soil ready for planting in the second decan. I had a really extreme version of this last year, the Taurus 1, the plow. Last year, when we were doing all of our food forest planning, we ordered a bunch of trees during Pisces and Aries season. And we started getting rid of all of the old weeds and like scrub trees and stuff where we wanted to plant these new fruit trees. And what we found in the corner, this large, like maybe 30 by 30 square foot kind of place at the corner of our property, was probably about 300 basketball-sized blocks of concrete, maybe even some the size of a beach ball, that were a broken apart concrete foundation that someone had just broken up and buried in that spot. And we basically spent the entire first decan of Taurus digging out large pieces of concrete from the place where we wanted to plant our trees. It was some of the most literal kind of experiences for this decan that I've ever had. And it was really hard. It was very tiring. You thought about giving up. You thought about like, why are we doing this? Why is this? It feels like a setback. But I think that the thing to do to respond to this is how do you keep moving forward, removing the obstacles to abundance, removing the obstacles to planting for future fertility, and making a plan. Devin was asking, was Venus retrograde 2? It might have been last year. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe look it up. It was between March and April of 2025. From Aries to Pisces, yeah, potentially. I think it was a Mercury retrograde around that period of time in Aries and Pisces. I think that was actually part of the retrograde cycle. I think maybe the Venus retrograde was happening then. You look it up. Tell me if it was. If both were. Okay, yeah, there you go. So yes, it's good catch, because we had a huge delay in trying to plow the field. It wasn't a normal amount of obstacles to remove. It was a crazy amount of obstacles. And it really slowed us down. It really was something where it's like, well, you thought you were about to move forward, but you really needed to figure this challenge out first. Okay. And I think there was also a Saturn contact involved with all of that too. I think there was a Saturn Venus conjunction that was happening because Saturn was in Pisces around that period of time. I think that was there were definitely I remember writing in my journal, the Saturnian no, right? There was a no that happened. Like, you're ready to plant. It's like, nope, you're not ready yet. You got to remove these Saturn big blocks of underground obstacles, right? So with Venus hosting this moon, what are we trying to achieve? Solarly, we're trying to state our values individually. Lunar significations, we're trying to find compromise, and we're trying to figure out what our contractual agreements are. We're trying to find the right balance. And Venus is hosting that moon, saying, all right, you're trying to find the right balance, and it may have to do with a financial issue where you're having to try to clear away obstacles to be able to plant the future seeds of fertility, of abundance. Okay? So this is how we do critical thinking in astrology. There is no program that farted out a signification for me. There was our brains saying, hey, this part helps to inform this part. And then because we know about this other part, now we can start crafting a narrative from our own creative muscles. So we are trying to state our intentions. We have to find compromise with others. And here we are seeing a potential of fear of scarcity driving these negotiations, because Venus is going to be making a square to Pluto in Aquarius 1. Pluto in Aquarius 1 talks about bigger picture, macrocosmic, interconnected events that have fallen into decay or have brought corruption to light. Oftentimes that decan's associated with people that have been cast into exile. You know, a lot of the themes that we've seen around Pluto and Aquarius is the first decan of Aquarius is people fearing and scapegoating immigrants. And there may be more of that happens due to fears of scarcity. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we can start waking up and actually point the finger at the real problem, which is not immigration. The real problem is the techno-feudal class, the wealthy class, trying to distract you from their kleptocracy, from stealing your tax dollars and putting it in their pockets. Not putting it into services, not putting it into healthcare, not putting it into food and housing, but putting it literally into their own bank accounts. That's the distraction where the scapegoating is happening. And oftentimes people will try to find the easiest target. People that are in a foreign place are vulnerable because sometimes they may not speak the language. They may not have the proper quote unquote documentation. All of those things makes them vulnerable to exploitation. So this is another part of this full moon that is probably feeding into some of the significations, the fear of scarcity due to some macrocosmic issues that are affecting everyone, not just individuals, and potentially some scapegoating of people who have been othered. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, Devin says both, right? We're talking about Venus. Mercury went direct April 7th. Venus went direct April 14th. I remember this time. Like, it was very visceral. Both conjoined Saturn and Pisces. There you go. Right? it was just blockage after blockage. It was we had a really idealistic dream. It was a really large scale transformation of the space. I think we ordered, it was something like 30 to 40 trees, which is a lot. And we were going to put in, I actually ordered 4 8x4 by 4 feet tall steel raised beds. We were going to remove all the asphalt and put the raised beds in. I constructed one of those raised beds and figured out that I didn't like it. I returned it and then bought a bunch of cedar wood, and then it's just, there was one obstacle after another. Part of it was my own fault. Part of it was some things that were out of my control. It was a balance of both of those things. And sometimes when Saturn is involved, you will reap the what you sow on some level. And what I'm trying to do this year is scale it way, 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 way back. Because not only was I trying to put in a food forest in my backyard, but I had like a webinar series I was doing with my partner that was very labor intensive. I had another class I was doing. There were just multiple things that were going that was just too much. I was working above my, what I like to call now, the complexity scale. I wasn't simplifying enough. And hopefully we've learned from that a little bit. Ani says, don't forget about the banksters. Yes, banks. Oh, yep. So many criminals, so little time, 100%. I'm not talking about my neighbors. Yep. I remember that when we had a social network ego bust, Mercury and Venus direct, more trouble than it was worth. Yep. Yeah, that was a crazy time. So I think that a lot of the negotiations that you might be making at this full moon have to do with a need to become more independent. Saturn in Aries, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, saying you really don't have a choice. You can't really continue on with this contractual agreement, and you have to move forward. Trying to figure out the most graceful way to do that. Trying to protect your relationship while you do so with the square with Jupiter. And then what's driving it may be a little bit of background hidden because of the lichen inverting, a little bit of hidden fear of scarcity from the macrocosmic challenges that we're all going through right now. So if I had to create a story on that, that would be the story that I would be coming out of it. So let's take a little break. And then I'm going to just kind of quickly unfold how the lunation is going to unfold up until the new moon. And I'm going to go quickly through it. If you want a deeper dive into that, you can look at the astrology of April. But let's stretch our legs first, reset our energy a little bit here for maybe another, 20 to 30 minutes. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, stretch your hips out. For those of you who joined late, my guided group study on the Silmarillion starts on Monday. We're going to be kind of reading together. We're going to be going into the land of Middle Earth and talking about the astrology of Middle Earth. We've been doing that all along with The Hobbit and with The Lord of the Rings. It's been super fun. We're going to meet up on Monday afternoons. If you can't make them all, that's okay. We're going to have a discussion chat group to be able to talk about things in between times. We're going to have reasonable reading assignments, nothing crazy. There is a tuition for it, but if you're struggling financially and you can't afford the stated price, send me an email at spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com. I'd be happy to work with you on a sliding scale, or pay what you want, or pay a symbolic amount, which can be, if you really want to join and you don't have any resources, just talk to me. I just want more people to hang out with us and talk about Tolkien. So that starts this Monday, the 30th. I hope that you can join me for that. Okay. Let's keep on going. What do you say? We're almost done with this session here today. So we've broken down the elements of the full moon itself on Wednesday. If we bring up the chart, you can see here, I know it's not going to be huge, but at least you can see it on the channel here. We've got two wheels. The inner wheel we're going to keep static with the full moon, so you can see how this is going to unfold over time. The first thing on the outer wheel that we're looking at is the moon making its first aspect as it comes out of being, oh geez, what's the word? It's escaping me right now. Under the bond, which means that it's not visible. When you have a moon that is under the bond, it is sort of delaying significations, delaying manifestations, okay? When it first peaks out, it generally makes an aspect to a planet, and that can tell us a lot about whether it's going to feel good or whether it's going to feel a little bit more challenging. In this case, the first aspect that the moon makes is on the 3rd, okay, which is Friday, at 5 degrees of Scorpio. Now, it's going to oppose Venus at 5 degrees of Taurus. So if we take a look at this over here, this is interesting because a lot of the themes that we were talking about with Pluto and with the square, now we have this giant T-square, okay? Here's this giant T-square between Pluto, the moon, and Venus on the 3rd. The moon in Scorpio 1 is often associated with grief, with feeling like we've lost something. I have a feeling that there is the possibility that in these, whatever these contractual negotiations are, whatever the compromises that we have to make to our own vision and our own values, that we may be feeling some loss, a sense of loss around it. I've been going through some things with my family recently where a lot of the, my family's been changing. Like my children are growing up. My child is growing up into an adult, and there's different dynamics between parent and child that need to change, contractual agreements, like things of that nature, like emotional agreements, all of those things, like family dynamic types of things. And as you see some of those things changing, there can be emotions around that, right? But by helping to facilitate independence, people can move forward with their own lives. They can move forward with all of the changes that they need to make to become adults and not become just too dependent over time or into infinity, right? That's part of growing up. It doesn't mean we're abandoning each other as parent or as parent and child type of relationships or something like that. It just means that those relationships are changing. And there may be a feeling of loss with the first aspect to the moon that feels like we are, if we're worried about resources, it could feel like we're losing something. It also could feel like with this square to Pluto that we're running into things that are bigger than us. I know that I've been feeling a lot of sadness around some of the changes, not just in my personal life, but in the social fabric of society, excuse me. Some of the changes, I don't like the direction that society's going. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of, you've heard me go on these long ethical statements about things like AI, things like capitalism, things like environmental challenges that we're facing, equality issues that we're facing. There's a lot that's happening in the world right now that's really frustrating. But that doesn't mean that we should stop and give up and not try to visualize what we want to create. I do think that when we go through some of these challenges, we do need to acknowledge some of the things that we're losing. And we need to ritualize that grief. So to me, this aspect is telling us, how can you ritualize your grief? How can you acknowledge the things that we are losing so that we can honor them? Doesn't mean we get stuck in them. I would say that the first decan of Scorpio, if we think about it as a 3-decan narrative, we're identifying that which we are letting go of. Scorpio is a Mars-ruled sign that severs and separates essence, spirit, from a body, because the body is no longer appropriate for that essence. It's aged, it's decaying, okay? It needs to be returned back to the earth to provide fuel and compost for the next cycle. So when you ritualize that grief, you're understanding and you're reevaluating what came before you. You're identifying that which you need to release so that you can plant new seeds moving forward. So to me, this opposition between the moon and Venus as the first aspect, we need to identify what we need to let go of so that we can start clearing the decks for what we want to plant moving forward. You may have to let go of some things. Last year, for example, what we've been talking about, I had too many things on my plate, way too many overly ambitious projects. I didn't evaluate my time effectively. Honestly, this is part of being a little bit neurodivergent. Me and my partner have talked about this before, but we have a little bit of time blindness. And we've been working really hard this year to retrain our brains to understand the limits of our time, to understand what we can do and what we can't. And I think that this is really important for this first aspect moving forward is how do we understand the limits of what we can do and what we can't, what we have to let go of, and the seeds that we want to plant, and what is really possible in the climate that we have socially. That's important. If you are pretending that everything is quote unquote normal, that you're just living a late 80s, early 90s version of capitalism right now in America, and you're just going about your business, that's not reality. That gap is getting wider and wider and wider. The fact of the matter is that we're in an international conflict right now where fuel prices are becoming much more expensive because of the actions of the West, because of the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, where resources flow through that strait and reach places like America, Europe, etc. When you have global issues with fuel, this is where we start seeing the connections. If gas prices and oil prices are super high, it costs a lot more money to get food from one place to the next. So not only do oil prices go up, but food prices go up. If you have trouble moving any resource from one place to the next, the price of that resource is going to go up. That means the price of housing will go up. It means that the resources that you need to build a house are going to go up. It's all connected, and it can all be traced back to some of these very ill thought out actions that are being perpetuated by people that are trying to distract from their own corrupt motives. So something to consider when you're thinking about your planning moving forward into Taurus season. How can you maybe scale back and plan for the inevitable challenges that might come through things that are out of your control? All right. If you're just going about and saying, I'm going to have all the money in the world to do everything like I normally do every single year, that might not be the case this year. And it might not be your fault. It might not be that you're not working hard enough or whatever. That's not necessarily true. It might just be that, we're in the middle of a global international conflict. It also might mean that maybe you're struggling financially because artificial intelligence has made your job obsolete. These are things that are not necessarily completely in an individual's control. That doesn't mean that we don't identify them and act accordingly. So I think that when you're making plans, when you're thinking about seeds you want to plant this year, you have to consider some of the larger scale ramifications. Does that mean that you just give up and do nothing? Absolutely not. There's so many things that you can do. Like there are so many ways to be creative about how you can still achieve the same goal with different types of resources. Like if you can't afford to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever the corporate chain is to buy supplies, maybe you can recycle something. One idea that my partner and I have come across that looks really interesting is taking old pallets, heat treated, of course, not chemically treated, and stapling hardware, landscaping fabric in them, filling it with dirt, and making like a strawberry palette. Now, you don't necessarily have to go spend any money to do that. Maybe to get the landscape fabric, but maybe not. You'd be amazed at how things come to you when you set an intention and you open your eyes. When my partner and I were on a walk, we often pass by this high school in my neighborhood, and they have a dumpster out there. Well, lo and behold, they were getting rid of 3 heat-treated pallets, like in the dumpster, you know, and they were in great shape. They weren't in the dumpster; they were just next to it. So sometimes the universe will provide exactly what you need. You just have to be creative about it, and it may not look like a Pinterest board. It may not look as sexy as the very, very whitewashed, you know, carefully curated accounts want you to think that you have to aspire towards. But that doesn't mean you can't achieve the essence of what you're trying to achieve: abundance, growing food, having communal relationships. That doesn't necessarily have to be completely tied to a flawed economic system. You can do so. You can create wealth non-monetarily through recycling, through relationships, through taking care of your health. All of those things are ways to think about wealth that aren't necessarily beholden to the fiat currency, monetary, late-stage capitalist system. And to be honest with you, we need to start thinking about the limitations of growth. This is the thing. The limitations of growth is what I was really talking about this past week, or learning about. I'm trying to remember the woman, the author's name. I emailed it to myself. Let's see. I have to figure out where this was. Oh my goodness. It's a podcast that is about this. The book is called The Limits of Growth. And I'm trying to figure out what the author's name was. I can't remember, and I'm looking through some of my material. Let's see here. It is Danella Meadows, aka Dana Meadows. And I saw this in a post from Collective Evolution, which is a nice follow. It's a cool follow. And it's talking about all of these different ways of experiencing interconnectedness. And that when we try to isolate something, we're just really making a little bit of a mistake in trying to analyze a problem just from one very tiny facet of a multifaceted issue. So that might be another way to think about this, is how can we move forward with that. So that's our first aspect. That is our first way we're looking at the unfolding of this moving forward. And we have a couple other things happening. That same day, Mercury is going to be trining Jupiter and Venus is squaring Pluto. I think we broke down the Venus-Pluto square sufficiently. Mercury's trining Jupiter. Again, talking about trusting our intuition, trusting our emotions, trusting the vision rather than getting attached to the form it takes. Mercury in the second decan of Pisces talks a lot about bridging the gap between our dream and the manifestation of our dream, but without attachment to the method and the material that it's going to, and the form that it's going to manifest as. So I do think that as this lunation unfolds, setting the intention and letting the divine, the universe, God, synchronicity, fate, whatever you want to call it, letting it meet you halfway and provide without dictating how you want things to appear. I think that's really important. The sun is going to square Jupiter shortly after this on the 5th. So here is the sun beginning to square Jupiter. Now you have it 16 degrees or so, the sun in Aries squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This could be some tension between our vision, our values, and the communal values. I think that the sun being in an overcoming square is really important because the sun is going to be in the driver's seat, right? The sun says, I want to do something now. I don't necessarily need to think more about it. I need to take action on it. Jupiter in Cancer 2 says, maybe we need to slow down and protect this and not expose it to the light. You've got the sun in a very visible place. I think this is a challenge between visibility and protection. So the sun square Jupiter, we may be rushing into something without thinking about the consequences of those actions. And this is another point in the zodiac, this interaction, where we have to be very careful of operating above our complexity ceiling, of trying to do too much, of trying to scale something very big when actually we might not have the resources to scale it that large. I'm really, really guilty of this. When I start to think about something, I have a little bit of what's called a maximizer personality. If I find something good, good's not good enough. I want the best, you know, or something like that. It's not enough for me to make small progress in my backyard. It's like, no, I need it completely transformed into the, you know, idealistic oasis vision. And I'm working through that. I'm working on trying to like take things in smaller chunks and see how it's going to work out over time rather than having to have all or nothing right away. And that could be important for this Sun-Jupiter square. Mercury exits its retrograde shadow on the 9th. So we're going to get you up to the new moon here in Aries. So here is Mercury exiting its retrograde shadow, about 22 degrees of Pisces. This might show you the sacrifices that you have to make for your vision. We talked about the Pisces 3. This is going to be Mercury emerging in the very similar degrees as where Mars is going to be hanging out at this full moon as the host of the sun. So there may be some questions. You may be realizing at this full moon the sacrifices that you need to make your dream a reality. And Mercury says, well, wait a minute. Do you really want to do this? Do you really want to like, I got to tell you, friends, I'm just kind of visualizing this. I got like a flash of insight. I have like a 30 by 20 foot section of my driveway that I would like to remove the asphalt to be able to put garden beds down. And I just had a vision of me trying to do it with like a sledgehammer and a pickaxe, and then realizing the sacrifice that might entail over a very short period of time because your planting window is very short, right? So I'm going to try to remember that for my own benefit. But it's that type of thing where you're starting to realize the sacrifice that you might have to make for a vision that you want to have, and you might have to make adjustments to that. That same day, the sun is moving into the third 10-degree section of Aries, where instead of just stating your own perspective, your own values, your own virtues, you're maybe softening some of the delivery to get people over and win them and woo them over to your side. So this could be how we're moving forward towards the new moon in Aries 3, where we are starting to understand not only what we believe, but how do we get support for what we believe in? How do we get support for the projects that we're doing? How do we maybe even take a break on the longer journey and celebrate how far we've come? That's important to do too. I think sometimes when we're in process, we don't take enough time to celebrate how far we've come. This decade of Aries, I love to think about this as Rivendell on the Lord of the Rings journey, where we're just beginning the journey, but we're gathering strength. We're gathering support. We're gathering resources for the much, much longer, much more difficult journey ahead. Ani says, raised garden bed instead of a sledgehammer. I know. It's like, I have the materials to make a 2-foot high cedar raised bed. I'm just really balking at building it on top of the pavement. There's something about it that doesn't feel right to me. And maybe I will just have to change my mind and just get over it, because I could build it on top of it right now and fill it, and that'd be fine. But there's just some idealistic part of me that just wants to restore that section back to dirt. Yeah. Devin says, build it this summer, plant it next summer. That's that's good advice. That might actually be what we have to do. We might have to just use like some pots and stuff this summer while we build out the infrastructure and then plant it next year. Maybe last year was the tree excavation and planting. This year could be raised bed building, and next year could be planting it. So I think last year I got real frustrated, Devin, because I wanted to remove all of the old stuff, plant the trees, build the raised beds, and plant them. And we ended up starting a ton of seeds. And half of those seeds just stayed in the tiny little 4-inch pots and just never got planted. And it was like, I felt like I was failing because I was failing those plants. But I think it's good advice. I don't think I want to start seeds really until I know exactly where they're going to go. And it's good to take it in steps like that. It's good advice. Spoken from the mouth of I believe, Taurus 1, maybe Taurus 2. Let your Taurus sun friends guide you in patience. I love it. All right. Mars moves into Aries on the 9th as well. So you could see here, Mars is moving into Aries. This is something that is, I think, where we start taking action in the dream, or where we're really putting a match to gasoline around this period of time. I will warn you, there's some really difficult astrology coming in mid to late April. We've talked about it on the astrology of April last week. Oh gosh, yeah. He says, Devin says, worse, Taurus 3. So actually, that's great, Devin, because Taurus 3 suns will teach you how to fix something after it's already fallen into disrepair or corruption. Oftentimes, probably because they've already made the same mistakes that you've made, and now they're trying to warn you about it. So I'm going to guess that Devin probably went through some of this already and learned from these challenges, and now is trying to guide me away from them. So thanks, bud. Appreciate that, friend. So Mars moving into Aries, it's starting to set up the big Aries stellium that we're seeing build through April, okay? And Mars moving there just really, it's the kind of I wouldn't say it's the final piece of the puzzle, but it is a huge piece of just taking action on a lot of these desires that we have towards individuation and making a new start, etc. It is literally the match on the gasoline, in my opinion. And this is building towards this last quarter moon. Okay, so here's a last quarter moon at 20 degrees of Capricorn. So here is on April the 10th, the last quarter moon. So we may be trying to win people over to our side through our charisma, through our humor, through softening some of our more blunt instruments of Aries. And we're running into potentially some bureaucratic challenges with the moon in this third decan of Capricorn. This also, I will remind you, for those of you in the United States, this is the week of doing the tax deadline. So think about also like bureaucratic entanglements and things of that nature. I think that reducing responsibilities is a last quarter Capricorn moon manifestation. To be able to achieve the new start, you may have to take some burdens off of your plate. You may have to commit to less. Like Devin was saying, maybe you don't build the infrastructure and plant it in the same season. Maybe you build the infrastructure one year and then give yourself the entire season to build that without worrying about the little baby plants. I had so much anxiety last year because I felt like I was such a failure because I had these little plants that I was trying to take care of, and because of the delays in the places to plant them, it just never happened. And I felt like I failed these little baby plants. And I don't want to feel that stress and anxiety this year. So yeah, like taking some of the pieces out is important. Devin says, totally attempted building a good forest before assessing the sunlight through the summer. Realized we did not have sun for 90% of the growing season. A lesson in slowing down to speed up. 100%. That's the other part of the situation, Devin. The place I want these raised beds to go, there's a lot of shade. There's a lot of scrub trees that probably would cost a couple $1,000s to take out, unfortunately. And that's a resource that, hey friends, if you want to donate to Spencer Michaud Astrology, you'd be donating to like tree services and infrastructure types things, like not doing the hard sell, but we may not have the resources to do all of that this year. So I think that understanding what you're able to do piece by piece is really important. And Devin is saying, hey, he's modeling that he learned through experience. So that Taurus 3 energy, learning through experience, really important. But Capricorn 3, though, similar energy when you have a last quarter moon. Quarter moons, I feel, this is through just reading through 36 faces multiple times. When you have a waxing moon, you want to increase the energy of that decan to achieve the goals of the sun. When you have a waning moon, you want to reduce the energy of that decan to achieve the goals of the sun, in my opinion. So you are reducing the burden of responsibility, Capricorn 3, to be able to achieve the new start, Aries 3. Okay. Now, this is a really important day as we move forward into the 11th, because a lot of what we're experiencing over the past few weeks, we had a Saturn cazimi on Wednesday. A lot of the political issues that I was highlighting today with the judgments against Meta, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and the consequences of the cancellation of a contract between Disney and OpenAI just completely took the rug out of Sora, the generative AI model. That happened when Saturn was cazimi. Saturn emerges from under the beams as the morning star on the 11th. Really important to look in your own personal life. What seeds were planted last Wednesday, midweek or so? Because you're going to see the what's been brewing behind the scenes start to become visible around this period of time. I made some inroads into figuring out some of my taxes for 2025 around last week. And this is going to be a period of time where I'm probably going to have to, push the go button because the deadline's coming when Saturn emerges. So think about what that might mean for you in your personal life, right? The next kind of astrological event is Mars conjuncting Neptune on the 13th. Okay, here's the Mars-Neptune conjunction at 2 degrees of Aries, while simultaneously Venus sextiles Jupiter. That's a really nice sextile between a Taurus Venus and a Jupiter in Cancer. I'm looking forward to this day. This should be a good day for me because my sun's at 15 degrees Cancer and my moon is at 15 degrees Taurus. I have this baked into my chart. So personally, I'm looking at that. I'm like, oh, that looks nice. The benefics on both of my lights, I'll take it. But for the collective, that could be a period of time where you're getting the resources you need. Taurus 2, fair distribution, equal distribution of giving and receiving. You're pacing yourself appropriately. You're protecting something that's important to you. Cancer 2, Jupiter in Cancer 2, and you have the fertility of Jupiter helping to something to grow behind the scenes in the walled garden, it's called. The Mars-Neptune conjunction, as part of that, where did that go? Why is that not down there? Sometimes I have like timers on these things. This is stupid. I have to change it shows it for 10 seconds, then it disappears. I digress. So the Mars-Neptune conjunction there, we might be able to take some action that we've been meaning to take as Mars was moving through Pisces, but we just didn't have all the resources ready to go for it. I would also offer that you really do want to be realistic around this time because you might be biting off more than you can chew with a Mars-Neptune conjunction. One possibility of Mars-Neptune is you're taking action that isn't based on reality. Another part of that, though, is I have often found when Mars and Neptune come together, whether it's through square, opposition, conjunction, I sometimes experience it as an energy power outage. Neptune is a dissolving influence, and Mars is our will to move forward, our energy to keep fighting. And it might be dissolving that fighting spirit or will, potentially. So be careful of overcommitting yourself energetically around this time. We have a Mars-Uranus sextile, or Mercury-Uranus sextile, the next day on the 14th. And after that, after the Mercury at 28 degrees or 29 degrees Pisces sextiles Uranus, Mercury moves into Aries. So another planet moving into Aries. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 planets and Chiron hanging out there. And when we have the new moon in Aries coming up, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 celestial bodies hanging out in Aries. It's really wild. So this is another dissolving. This is like invisible ink here. Sometimes when I'm updating these things, sometimes they the timer gets changed. So Mercury moving into Aries, our communication style might be less emotional. It is an improvement of dignity for Mercury. So potentially this could be a time where your thinking starts to become a lot clearer because it's not colored by a lot of emotions or a lot of things of that nature. Or could be where that Mars Neptune coming together, maybe we realize that we're severing some of those illusions, right? We're severing the illusion that we have to do everything by ourselves. And Mercury will help us to understand that, hey, you know, maybe we need to communicate a little bit more about this. Maybe we have some more questions that we need to ask around this first. And maybe we need to ask for help. You know, I think this is the thing that Neptune and Aries can lead to, is a little bit of overestimating our ability to carry out things as individuals. I really truly believe in the interconnectedness of all things, the interconnectedness of human beings, of us as part of this fragile, fragile planet, of this universe, of the solar system, etc. And the greatest lie that has been perpetuated to us in Western civilization is that we have to be these like little islands of personal, you know, energy, personal, I don't know, of only being able to do something if we do it as an individualistic type of action moving forward. It just doesn't work that way. Our actions have effect on other people, on other things. And if we realize that, we can start working with those systems and with those other people, with those relationships, rather than always fighting against it, because that can really exhaust our energy. On the 16th, Mercury sextiles Pluto. So this is Mercury making the sextile at about 5 degrees or so to Pluto. Let's see. No, Mars is sextiling Pluto. Excuse me. Mars sextiles Pluto on the 16th, and Mercury conjoins Neptune. So this could be a day of collective events where we're seeing some, unfortunately, potentially some action or violence in the collective. So I guess keep your eyes peeled with that, because this is building towards a really volatile period of time with the new moon in Aries. So here's the new moon in Aries, okay, on the 17th. And this one has a huge Aries stellium hosted by Mars here. We do have Venus starting to apply to Uranus. All of this is squaring Jupiter. We talked a lot about the Jupiter square earlier, where I do think that there's a question of whether we're protecting our projects moving forward, or in visibility versus invisibility with the Sun and Jupiter squaring off. This is building towards a really difficult weekend, potentially, with Mars conjoining Saturn at 7 degrees of Aries, or just a really active one. I don't know if it has to be difficult, but Mars-Saturn conjunctions, those are two malefic planets coming together. This is Saturn in its fall, Mars in its own domicile. I just have my eyes open for this one. Once the Sun moves into Taurus on the 19th, it starts to make a square to Pluto. So we have a Sun-Pluto square that's forming that's going to echo the Venus-Pluto square at the full moon. We also have, on the 20th, Mercury in malefic enclosure, okay, in between Saturn and Mars, all right? And that's going to be for the most of the day on the 20th. Thankfully, it's only one day, but that same day, Saturn is entering its retrograde shadow at 7 degrees of Aries, and Mercury is conjoining Mars, which ends the malefic enclosure. This is going to have repercussions for the American news cycle. I just don't know any other way to put it. That 7 degrees of Aries, 7 to 8 degrees of Aries, first of all, squaring Donald Trump's Mercury in Cancer 1, 8 degrees of Cancer in the 12th house. So this guy's going to be under an enormous amount of pressure around this period of time. 7 degrees of Aries is also Jeffrey Epstein's natal moon degree. 0 degrees of Aquarius is Jeffrey Epstein's natal sun. So there's going to be a sun square for Epstein. There's going to be all of these planets coming together on Epstein's moon, and all of that is going to be making a big square to Donald Trump's Mercury. So I would expect the next chapter of the Trump-Epstein type of story that's unfolding to be revealed around this period of time. I would also say that it's not the end of the story, especially because Saturn is going to retrograde in the end of July back to this degree, 7 degrees of Aries in December 10th specifically of 2026. So I don't expect the events that unfold around this period of time to be resolved until, or even begin to feel like they're resolved until December. So I guess pay attention to what happens, because it's going to be something that will have to be revisited in your personal life and in the collective throughout the rest of 2026 into December. That's what I've got for you today. Friends, we have a couple more things before we go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for all of your critical thinking. Thank you for all of your comments and sharing of your experiences and stories. I do have a hexagram for you and an animal. So let's break that down before we go. Do me a favor before you go. Check out the guided group study, The Silmarillion. We start Monday, the 30th of March, which is this Monday as I'm recording this. Again, if you are interested, but you're on the fence about either both the time commitment or the financial commitment, send me an email. It's okay if you come to most of it. It's okay if you can't afford the tuition and you want to work out either a payment plan or a sliding scale or just some nominal pay what you can type of thing. I would more love to have more people in the group than to have that be a barrier to creating community with you, especially with how things are going in the collective right now. I think we all could use a little time in Middle Earth together. I think that would be fun. Doesn't mean that we completely escape, the reality that we're living in, but I think we can learn a lot of lessons from an author that lived through some really difficult times like World War I and World War II, and can show us how to have, I think, just a little bit of dignity through those times, and how to, there's some really instructive things in the land of Middle Earth, in Tolkien, in The Lord of the Rings, in The Hobbit, and in The Silmarillion, about just how to have grace through difficult times. Now, The Silmarillion, there's some really epic events, and I'm really excited to go on that journey with you. Okay, let's see. Devin says, don't forget Mercury's signification for children. Ooh, gosh, good catch. With Mercury and malefic enclosure and some of the horrific events that were perpetrated through Epstein and most likely through Trump as well. So yeah, that's going to be a difficult day. Just give yourself some extra space emotionally, physically, etc. And then also, don't let people distract you from their negativity, their corruption. Don't let this administration get away with distracting from their previous misdeeds. That's something that's really frustrating, is seeing people wriggle away from accountability by creating more problems. We need to hold people accountable and not forget, and not just let ourselves be distracted by this stuff. So yeah, good catch there, Devin. Sad catch, but a good one astrologically. Okay, so let's talk about the I-Ching here. All right, let's see where we can. I am going to have to put these back in here for a minute. Okay, here is the I-Ching. So this is hexagram number 59, dispersion. Changing to hexagram 57, gentle influence. Hexagram 59 also translates, and I'm going to read to you some of the text from Jack Balkin's The Laws of Change, my favorite I-Ching source text. Gentle influence, dispersion, disillusion, getting rid of egotism, bringing people together, excuse me. So this is dispersion, changing to gentle influence, excuse me. Bringing people together, finding a common purpose, clearing up blockages, melting the ice, eliminating obstacles within yourself. The judgment, dispersion, success. The king approaches his temple. It is beneficial to cross the great river. It is beneficial to persevere. Jack says, you can now make great progress by bringing people together. To do this, you must dissolve things that keep them apart. This is great for negotiations, right? We're trying to bring people together through negotiation with this full moon. Egotism, selfishness, and insecurity have pitted people against each other. They are unable or afraid to communicate with each other openly and sincerely. Hence, they pursue their narrow self-interest in a short-sighted way. You have the power to change all of that. Strive to clear up misunderstandings and doubts. Work to reconcile people and break up factions and cliques. Progress will come only when you eliminate mutual suspicion and antagonism and restore harmony and cooperation. The same principles apply with special force to yourself. It is time to break through the barriers that separate you from others. You must dissolve the selfishness and egotism within you. This is the path to happiness and success. To eliminate egotism and dispel misunderstanding, you must exercise gentleness, flexibility, and tact. If you try to force people to come together, they will resist. If you try to dominate people, you will simply drive them farther apart. The text compares the best strategy to wind blowing gently over floes of ice that separate people. Over time, the ice melts, and the barriers that once divided people are gradually removed. In the same way, you need open channels of communication to open slowly and give people a sense of comfort with each other. Gradually, they will begin to come together. The melting of ice starts slowly at first and then proceeds more quickly. The same is true of trust. Trust begins in the little things, and then once it is established, the forces of solidarity and reconciliation build on each other more rapidly. All right, so we've got one changing line here. That changing line is in the third place. It says, he dissolves himself. Regrets vanish. To dissolve oneself means to surrender egotism and selfishness. You face a difficult task that you cannot achieve by yourself. To accomplish it, you will need to change your attitude. Stop thinking in terms of your own self-interest. Remember all that stack up in Aries? Remember the Neptune in Aries? Bringing us illusion around self-interest. Break down the barriers that separate you from other people. You will gain a sense of fulfillment through working with others and devoting yourself to a worthy, shared goal that benefits everybody. This will strengthen your character and you will be able to achieve great things. All right, so this is, I-Ching's teaching us about compromise. This is really the theme of this full moon, is learning when to compromise and when not to, really. We don't want to compromise our values, but we might have to compromise the form that those values take. Gentle influence is hexagram 57. Compliance, humility, gentleness, penetrating, wind, persistence. This hexagram has a double meaning. On one hand, it means compliance or submission. On the other hand, it means to influence and penetrate through gentle means. This duality is the key theme of the hexagram. It means that a person gains influence and the ability to penetrate an institution by being willing to submit to it and comply with its leadership. People who assist their leaders become indispensable and hence exert enormous influence over time. Although they often exert that influence in small ways and behind the scenes. Thus, it is through compliance that one exerts influence. It is through humbleness that one penetrates through resistance and exerts power. The judgment of this hexagram is gentle, says gentle influence, success in small matters. It is beneficial to have somewhere to go. It is beneficial to see a great person. The best way to affect a situation right now is through gentle, persistent action and subtle forms of influence. The text compares the right way of proceeding to that of wind. A mild breeze seems inconspicuous, but it can penetrate everywhere. Its effects are gradual, but are considerable over time. It is delightful and unassuming. Therefore, it is not feared or resisted, but is gladly and gratefully accepted. And because it is accepted, it has influence. The key is to be both gentle and persistent. A violent or forceful approach will be counterproductive and will meet with a rebuff, but a gentle approach will be more readily received, and if you are persistent, will eventually have the right effect. Because you can only influence the situation in subtle ways, clarity and single-mindedness of purpose are essential. If you are uncertain about what you want, or if you waste your time pursuing multiple and conflicting ends, I'm talking to you, Spencer, and your Venus and Gemini. If we get too distracted, Algorand, right? This is another thing, right? Your message will dissipate and you'll have no influence at all. Therefore, you must absolutely be clear in your mind what your goals are. Define your objectives and stick to them. The wind is most powerful when it blows in only one direction. You will not change the situation all at once, but through steady and persistent influence. Things will proceed slowly, but if you have patience, over time, you can have a significant effect. It also tells us it goes on to say, restrain impulsive tendencies, be patient and flexible, Adjust to the changing circumstances rather than fighting them, and continually look for opportunities to persuade and win people over to your side. Remember, that's the new moon in Aries 3, right? Okay. Let's see. Under no circumstances should you act aggressively or try to dominate the situation. That will surely backfire. Instead, let others take the lead. Stay in the background and serve them. You will make the most progress by subordinating yourself and making your presence felt in small but significant ways. I mean, this really just talk about the balance and the gentleness of seeing things from multiple perspectives, seeing things from the other side, not using the hammer or the axe of Aries to get what you want, but be through gentle persistence, through staying below our complexity ceiling, through focus on what we want to achieve rather than getting distracted with a number of different projects all at once. Taking that one step at a time will lead to success. Slowing down will actually make things come about quicker. Now, this is interesting to me because the animal that I got is pretty, it's really fascinating for this. I got the grasshopper. Here's the grasshopper. Now, I need to add this to the screen. Hopefully you can see that. Here is something slow that's going on. I have a vision of the grasshopper here, but it's taking a while to upload. One moment. There we go. Look at that guy. Now the grasshopper, giant leaps forward, right? It might lead to a giant leap forward. Doesn't mean that we have to be aggressive about it. It just means that, hey, we've got something going on here. I'm going to read to you from Melissa Alvarez's Animal Frequency. Grasshopper symbolizes being a unique individual, something that Aries values very much. There are 11,000 species of grasshoppers, and each has its own individual song. The males sing to the females to attract their mate. This is a sign to you that there are many different ways to achieve the same goal. So find your own unique way of doing things. Grasshopper can jump 20 times the length of its own body. This means that you can't let your size hold you back from making great strides in your life. Grasshoppers are small, but they can eat 16 times their weight every day. This is a warning to watch your diet so that you don't overeat or make sure that you're consuming enough to maintain your health. This animal has talents for individuality, ingeniousness, instinctiveness, intuitiveness, quick progress, uniqueness. It has challenges around destructiveness, lacking direction, being unorganized and unstable. Grasshopper appears when you're about to experience a dramatic positive change in your life. It urges you to leap at opportunities because they may have once-in-a-lifetime potential. Trust your judgment and instincts to make great leaps forward. Your natural rhythm and pacing is on point. When needed, Grasshopper uses its wings to fly towards quick progress. You can soar by trusting your decisions instead of second-guessing. You're willing to go off the beaten path and find uniqueness hidden in unconventionality. This is the part of your character that will open new doors to wondrous possibilities. Right now, you have so many doors and windows opening all around you that you might be unsure which way to jump. Take a moment to look around, trust your feelings, and take that leap. You'll be happy that you did. This animal can assist you when you're stuck and need a new, unique approach. This can be a project at work, or you might just be redecorating your home. Whatever the situation, Grasshopper helps you to see unique ways to approach it. You may feel like you're taking the long way around to accomplish your goals, but Grasshopper doesn't move in a straight line, so you don't need to force the situation into a rigid path. Leave frustration behind, enjoy the scenery as you consider it from all angles, and know that the end result will be amazing. If you're having trouble trusting your decisions and instinctual nature, Grasshopper can reinforce that you're moving in the right direction. If you're not, it can get you back on track. Grasshopper warns you to jump out of the way if you're feeling frustration or danger, or if a situation has gotten too gnarly to deal with. Leave it behind for a moment and approach it from a different direction. Unless it's dangerous, leave it behind for good. Okay, so an interesting animal, kind of encouraging us to take that leap. Take the leap into the unknown, to start that new project, but maybe to be patient while doing so, and to pare it down a little bit so that you don't get overwhelmed, okay? Stay below that complexity ceiling. Sometimes when you if you simplify something, you may actually make more progress than if it was too complex and you can't make any progress. Okay. Devin says, ooh, the grasshopper, right? It's awesome. Ani says, you are talking to my Mercury in Pisces and exalted sun stellium. I identify with grasshopper. Thanks, Spencer. Appreciate you, Ani. Yeah, appreciate you, Devin. Thank you, friends, for stopping in today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I love spending time breaking all this down. I love the passion that we get to debate some of the issues that we're experiencing in real time. I love the wisdom that comes through the group mind and the hive mind. I love the grace of this community to be able to, hold each other accountable and maybe hopefully bring us new perspectives without it devolving or degrading into real nastiness that we see on the internet. You all are awesome at doing that. And thank you so much for being here today. And thanks for supporting the work that I'm doing. I hope that this spring is fortunate for you. I hope that we continue to move towards equality and justice out in the collective and peace. I hope that that you're able to achieve some of the new starts, right? And move through the changes necessary gracefully. Take that leap, have the courage to start something that's been true to your heart, right? And do so in a way that benefits not only yourself, but your community as well. I think if you keep all those things in mind, the sky's really the limit, So that's what I've got for you, friends. Do me a huge favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on social media at Spencer Michaud, all of the different places. Remember, guided group study, the Silmarillion, starts Monday the 30th. Reach out if you have any questions or if you need financial assistance. I would be happy to work with you. I would just love some more people in the group. Go follow my beautiful partner at Third Coast Mojo if you need some magical stuff. And that's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much, friends, for being here today. Appreciate all of you. Be kind to yourself through these processes. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to others. You're gonna catch a lot more flies with honey than you are with whatever else, right? You know what I'm saying? So use those charismatic skills, use your good humor, use your kindness, use your ability to be of service to others. You're going to get people on board with your vision if they can see a benefit for the community and for the collective as well, rather than just a personal benefit. All right, friends, that's what I've got for you today. Have a great weekend. Have a great full moon moving into the next week, and we'll see you soon. All right, peace.